Good evening. This is Tim Johnson. Okay, this is still Tim Johnson. The Brattleboro Select Board is next here on BCTV. Tonight, the board, as the liquor commissioners, will be asked to approve a holiday wine and beer tasting put on by the Brattleboro Food Co-op. Plus, they'll get an update on the police and fire facility project, be asked to approve a grant application for Scott Air Packs and radios for the Brattleboro Fire Department. They'll get an update on the solar electric generation facility project proposed for 90 Technology Drive. Hear a request from the Brattleboro Skate Park Committee to change the size of their conceptual design for the park. 8 proposed members for the Town Manager Citizen Search Committee were interviewed earlier tonight. The board will pick members for that committee. Ordinance amendment first reading for handicap parking on Linden Street, and another first reading of an ordinance for 20-minute parking on Elliott Street. The Brattleboro Select Board is next here on BCTV.
Good evening. We're reconvening the October 1st Brattleboro Select Board meeting. We know that the meeting has been officially warned. The first item on the regular meeting agenda is to approve the minutes from September 17 and September 26 of 2013. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion to approve the September 17 and September 26 meeting minutes as presented. Is there any discussion from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Next on the agenda is chair's remarks. We have a pretty packed meeting tonight, and the remarks that I'll have will be brief. We are heading into foliage season, and there'll be a lot of traffic coming through town. We thank everybody for their patience in negotiating around the water main breakdown on Linden Street, and we thank Public Works for their quick attention to repairing that. We will have the Literary Festival and Gallery Walk this coming Friday night, and look forward to everybody participating and enjoying the season. Next item on the agenda is manager's comments.
I'm all set. No comments.
Next item on the agenda is select board comments and committee reports. Anybody on the select board got comments or committee reports?
Nope. We'll be talking about it soon, though.
Not sure it's a committee report, but I'm on I'm represented on the Waste Management District Board, and I just wanted to report that the district successfully negotiated the healthcare exchanges process and has come up with a plan for their employees that looks like it's going to work out well.
Excellent. Donna?
And I just want to say I really appreciate all the people that came out to be considered to help with the town manager selection. I see it as one of the wealthiest parts of our community is that people are actively involved and participate, and the select board very much appreciates their time and energy.
Thank you, Donna. I'm sure we all agree. Kate?
I have one quick, it's a public service announcement. There's going to be a group of interested citizens who are going to be meeting at Plenty Park tomorrow night at 5:30 to sweep and rake and pick up trash. So if there's anybody out there that has an interest in cleaning tomorrow night at 5:30, come to Plenty Park.
I'll also note I'm on the Traffic Safety Committee, and among other business, we have essentially finished a draft of the traffic calming plan that we've been working on for many months. And so we'll look forward to presenting that to the select board in the coming weeks. Oh, and I'll be missing the next meeting. Sorry. Yeah. Kate will be chairing the next meeting. Next item on the agenda is public participation. It's a chance for anybody who's in attendance who wants to speak to an item that's not on the agenda to speak to the board. Is there anybody who is here for public participation who wants to speak to an item that's not on the agenda? Yes, sir. And if you would give your name.
Steve Dutton, and I gave you a notice for
Yep.
White Cane Walk on the 15th.
Yep.
At 12 o'clock in front of the Burton Memorial Library. I'd like to have anybody in the audience to attend and some of the select boards, please.
Would you say that date again, please?
It's right here.
October 15th at noon in front of the library.
Yep.
All right, so October 15th at noon, the 6th Annual White Cane Awareness Day Walk, beginning at the library at noon.
Yeah.
Stevie,
Thank you,
thank
Steve.
you.
Yeah.
Anybody else who's in attendance? Well, the next matter on the agenda is liquor commissioners. Do we have a motion to convene as liquor commissioners?
So moved.
We have a motion to convene as liquor commissioners. Is there any discussion from anybody who's in attendance? Anybody on the board? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. So that item is the educational sampling event permit. I see Jeff is here. Jeff, if you want to come up and talk to us a little bit about that event. How are you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
All right.
This will be our third annual holiday wine and beer tasting, and we put it on for the community. This year it's a $20 entry fee, and there will be approximately 40 wines and 15 beers to sample, and the public is welcome.
Patrick, if you could just speak a little bit to what goes into the permit, what we need to consider, if anything, at this point?
Really, there really isn't all that much to consider. The Department of Liquor Control will be responsible for ensuring that everybody has the appropriate licenses. The event is, of course, to be held at the Museum and Arts Center on Friday, December 13th, between 5:30 and 8. And other than that, the co-op's in good standing in terms of fees and taxes and everything else. So we're good to go.
Excellent. Anybody from the board have any questions?
Is there a prize for having the most unusual name for your beer?
No.
The Clown Shoes Lubrication and Dogfish Egg Hellbound, or Hellhound?
Good beer.
Anybody who's in attendance have any questions about this permit or any comments? All right, well then we're ready for a motion.
I'll do it. I move to approve an education sampling event permit for the Brattleboro Food Co-op for a holiday event to be held at the Brattleboro Museum and Arts Center at 10 Vernon Street on Friday, December 13th, between 5:30 and 8 p.m.
Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Jeff, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I'd like
Good
to
night.
say, I think that might be Kate's first motion.
What's that? All right, I
Take him out of order.
think we're going to do that. The next item on the agenda, under new business, is an update on the police fire facility, but we asked our project manager to be here at 6:30 to address the item. Jan?
You're still liquor commissioners.
Oh, we need a motion to adjourn as liquor commissioners.
So moved.
All right. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Thanks, Jan.
All right. Anybody abstaining or opposed? That carries 5-0. We're adjourned as liquor commissioners. Thank you, ma'am. We're going to go out of order and take item B under new business, which is the grant application, assistance to firefighters grant in the fire department. And then as soon as the police fire facility project manager, Steve Horton, arrives, we'll take that agenda item. Hi, Chief.
Good evening. Means the chief's going to get out earlier.
So I'm here tonight to ask for your support and permission to apply for a $315,314 grant through the Assistance to Firefighters Program to replace all 34 of our air packs and all 35 of our portable radios. As you know, the air packs come up in the FY15 budget, first year of a 3-year program to replace them. I'm hoping that with this grant that I can ease some of the financial burden on the town if it's awarded to us to replace all of the air packs. So the monetary easement is one thing. The other thing is it's a safety concern of mine to do a 3-year program because a new age of air packs is out, so we'll be mixing old with new. people be grabbing new air packs or old air packs. We'll have different warning bells, things like that. I hope that if we can replace them all at once, that that'll alleviate that concern. All of the air packs are at least 13 years old. By this grant standard, they're obsolete. We're about 4 cycles behind NFPA standards at this point. Back in 2006, we did some upgrades to regulators, hoses and stuff, but they still don't meet the current NFPA standard. The portable radios, they're all 8 years old. They take a beating, as you can imagine. They get wet, they get full of debris inside a building. And presently, the radios are not in the capital budget for replacement, and I would just like to take this opportunity to just double up on this grant and see if we can get everything replaced at once. The total cost of the project is $331,910. I would be applying for $315,314.50, and we're mandated for a 5% match, which is just over $16,000. And I would propose that if we're awarded the grant, that match come from the money that's in the capital of the first year of the SCBA replacement.
Yeah, Patrick.
Yeah, I would only like to add that if we are successful in receiving this grant, which I certainly hope we would be, they've been kind to us in the past with significant dollars for other significant projects, such as doing a study and funding the infrastructure that built our fire communication system. If we are successful with this grant application, that would save, $100,000, give or take, off of the projected fiscal 15 capital budget, and do the same thing in the subsequent 2 years. So it's a shot, but it's certainly one that's worth trying.
What is the grant cycle, Chief? When will we know?
The actual grant hasn't even opened yet, and now because of the federal shutdown, I don't know when it will, because it's federal money. It was supposed to open within the first week of October, and the grant application period stays open for about a month, and then they go through the whole process of reviewing the applications. In March, usually around March, they'll start with awards, and they come out in rounds. So round 1 would come out in March. There'll be a little bit of a lapse. Round 2 would come out, and basically that goes on until they've awarded all of the money. Usually they're done with the awards by the time the new grant comes out the following year. So by this time next year, we should know, one way or the other.
So, Mike, this is federal money, right?
Yes.
So this is across the United States. And
Very
so
competitive.
This is very, very competitive.
Yeah.
What do you think our chances are?
I think they're good. I think that, with a lot of review of the narrative that I'm writing, get some good minds together, and they look for certain things. And I went to a workshop here last month with a FEMA grant writer, and they give you a lot of good pointers. So I think that our chances are really good.
Because you're up against L.A.
Right, but we're put into a category with towns of our like size.
Oh, okay.
So
That's good.
that helps. And the problem is it's one of the very, very few grants exclusive for fire departments. So it's very competitive.
Very competitive.
Yeah.
Patrick, I'm sorry, John.
No, I just say good luck.
And Patrick, if you could briefly speak to the way in which the grant application is vetted, and then the role that the grants manager plays in all this, just by way of education, since we got so many people here. How is this put together, and then how will it be submitted?
Well, the application is really developed within the department, and Mike's taken the lead on that in terms of putting together the application, gathering the information, developing a relationship with the funding source so that you have a sense as to what it is they're looking for. You're not sort of, aiming in the wrong direction. once, the application is then, once Mike is done with it, it's sent to the finance office where John reviews it. When John's done with it, it's sent to my office where I review it and bring it here. Once the board has authorized its submission, it heads out to Washington, I suppose. And when we receive notification, we're back here for accept and appropriate. And at that point in time, the grants manager sort of takes it as a hot project and monitors it for compliance that Mike would be responsible for.
And given the grant cycle, it sounds like we're still going to have to consider as part of this year's capital budget whether to include the first year's worth of replacement of these air packs.
Yes. Yeah, we'd know before, we would likely know based on the timeline that Mike outlined, we'd know before the following fiscal year begins, but probably not before the budget cycle.
Any more questions from the board?
No.
Any questions from anybody who's in attendance? Then we are ready for a motion.
I move we approve a grant application in the amount of $315,314.50 to the FEMA Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program to fund the purchase of new air packs and radios.
Is there any further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike.
Still want to know how to do it. 50
The next item we're going to take up is the police fire facility project. Steve, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good evening.
Steve?
How are you?
So,
Yes, Patrick, please.
I asked Steve to be here. I know it's been a little while since we've had Steve or anybody from the committee here. I wanted to invite them here because we just had a meeting last week. Our meetings with the Police Fire Facility Oversight Committee have been somewhat irregular as a result of trying to not meet when we don't have to and to only take up meetings when there is something genuine to undertake and investigate. Just such a meeting happened last Thursday, so I asked Steve if he wouldn't mind spending a little time with us this evening and talking to us a little bit about what he's learned
And where we stand.
and where we stand.
Thank you for that intro.
Good intro.
The last time we met, I was here to recommend to you the hiring of our construction manager, DEW. And immediately following that, I asked DEW to provide us with a baseline estimate comparable to what Black River had provided in their study for us, just to make sure that we were all on the same page in regards to the early budgeting. And I'm here to report the results of that. The news is good. DEW's estimates came back slightly lower than the Black River budgets by about $200,000. It's fairly insignificant. $200,000 is a lot of money, but in the scheme of things, that's a fairly insignificant amount of money considering what I want to emphasize here tonight, and that is we're very, very preliminary in our, John, I knew John would laugh on this one.
We said that a lot at the last meeting, very, very preliminary. We can't say it enough.
And I want to reemphasize that. It's very early, but the good news is it looks like we're on track with our budget based on the study and the information we have today. In addition to the $200,000 or so that we are seeing in our favor at the moment is another interesting facet that we have been pursuing as part of our early programming in the project, and that is that from the first day I visited the site in West Brattleboro, Station Number 2, I questioned the validity of some of the early study in regards to cost factors around the idea of building an addition over what's now the oil tank, septic tank, VY tower, and so forth. I felt like the premise of doing that would cost about $100,000 in relocation costs that no one would ever actually benefit from, police or fire or the results wouldn't come out in the building. With that premise, I asked DEW to study the cost of building the addition and renovating the building as the Black River study had provided us with, and the voters had frankly approved, versus tearing down that existing building and building a new 3,500 square foot facility, which would be the outcome of the Black River study. We would have 3,500 square feet of old and new combined. What I asked them to do is provide cost factors for the new total 3,500 square feet versus that combination. Well, the results were that it's $220,000 cheaper to tear down the old building and build new than it is to try to retrofit what we have and build over the services and so forth that exist there today. And so I felt it important to come tonight to tell you that news because it is a shift in thinking, and it would be important to have your input on that shift of thinking so that the designers, architects, and engineers, along with the building committee and construction manager and myself, could plan accordingly. With that, I have to turn back to Patrick and say, with that information, some action may be required from the select board or whom you deem appropriate, and I'd like to turn it back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. Appreciate your articulating that fairly well. You know, one of the things that we discussed and I'm concerned about is, of course, the expectations of the public. And the expectations of the public were, you know, there were in effect 3 sub-projects described, one at Central, one at Station 2, and one here at the Municipal Center. The one at Station 2, which we're focusing on at the moment, was described as a renovation and addition. And what's being contemplated here is a knockdown and new construction. So it seems that there is an opportunity to potentially enjoy some measure of cost savings, but it comes at sort of, you know, changing the plan a little bit. And so if just want to confirm, or rather perhaps I should start by saying to convey to you that the committee unanimously supported that we undertake considering these types of options, and wanted to confirm with the select board that they felt similarly. And then if that is the case, there are some other factors that I think Steve can discuss.
I'd like to ask John as the select board representative to that committee, and if Dave were you there?
Dave
All right,
was,
so
right.
he was away. So John, if you would speak to what happened and what the committee's recommendations were
Well,
and its thinking.
it really was a no-brainer to some degree. You know, having a couple builders on board, you know, on the committee, and myself. When Steve mentioned it, and again, it's very. This is still very, very. The figures are a little raw, you know, but they're still pretty. Those are pretty close. A lot closer than
We're
the other
confident
savings.
of that aspect, yes.
So, you know, it was broached to the committee, and I believe that Dave Emery may have brought it up, one of the committee members, and being the ex-police or fire chief, he has some knowledge on it. The building is old, and there's a lot of things that are in the way that could easily be mitigated by just tearing it down and relocating it. Now, and I don't know if, can we mention the...
Yeah, of course we can.
Well, and I'll let you
does it
mention
follow
it.
in sequence,
It,
or?
it kind of,
Right.
I think it
I'll
follows in the
just keep
sequence
going
because
then.
there was other discussions about what's going on out there.
So one of the issues, it seems like a no-brainer, and it seems like a great idea right off the bat, and I think it probably is a pretty good idea to be open to this, but it begs the question: okay, if we tear down Station 2 and we build a fresh Station 2, what are we going to do with the fire department out there? You know, they need a place to have the trucks and to spend the night and all those sorts of things. So how do we do this in such a way such that the cost savings isn't offset by relocation expenses? And one of the ideas that was floated was, well, what if we looked at constructing the new facility adjacent to where the existing one is in the gravel parking lot? The
Small
challenge.
problem.
There is a little bit of a problem. It's not ours. It's
But
not
it's
the town of
close.
Brattleboro's, but it's close.
It's close to ours.
It's owned by the town of Brattleboro School District. And so the committee was eager and interested in that possibility. I reached out to the school district superintendent, Ron Staley, and we sort of agreed that in the event that the board was open, this board was open to considering Station 2 in this manner, then it would make sense for us to, write up a proposal, so to speak, and forward that to the school board for their consideration. So,
And so that's where we were, and I just wanted to have everything out, kind of a little bit out in the open about where we stood. It's a perfect piece of property that basically the town of Brattleboro has maintained it for the last 25, 30 years or whatever. We've plowed it, we've done everything, but it still is in the school district's hands. But it's a perfect location, just that little bit of extra space gives us the ability to build new, leave the old one there in the process, and then tear that down. And it's not a little bit of money of savings. It's quite a bit. So it really does factor into it well in our favor. So again, there's still, we mentioned this a lot, very, very kind of raw figures, but those are pretty solid figures.
Yeah, I'm relatively confident. We're using a square foot conversion,
Right.
but the reality is that's an easy equation, and
Yeah.
I'm relatively confident of those numbers. If I might, building on the gravel parking lot is actually a better location for Station 2 as far as access to the trucks backing in and out as well. There's some definite benefits to moving the building from where it is. It's a very difficult area to back into right now into the bays. Not only are they extremely tight, but it's difficult in the street itself. And
A lot of water there.
a lot of water there.
Yeah, there's a lot of water.
And but first off, I must say this, and that is the thought process of building the new building at Station 2 initially didn't necessarily take into effect or thought of building on the school property. My mind conception was that we could tear the building down and build the bays where they are. So either way, I think is a win, and I just wanted to make sure you were aware of that. It doesn't have
Right.
to be tied
Exactly.
to the school property,
Right.
but that by building onto the school property, it's actually even more beneficial, in my opinion, to the outcome.
And it just makes it a little bit easier
Yeah.
and, a little bit for relocating
And
and
it
for keeping
Sa-
Station
it
2 open.
Saves
during-
more money in the
Yeah.
long run
Yeah.
in the project. And ideally, if we can achieve that, I think it's a win-win for
Mm-hmm.
everyone.
Anybody on the board have
Yeah,
any
I have a
comments?
question.
Tom?
Are there any, can you identify or just articulate any potential downsides to tearing down the building as opposed to retrofitting, and any unintended consequences that you're looking out for with the change in plan that the board should be aware of?
The only one that I'm aware of is actually and we've talked about this, but it's the historical / nostalgic connection, and frankly honoring the people that spent the time to build the building. It was a volunteer effort, and it was no easy or light volunteer effort. There's some serious time put into that building. And so I think in that regard, that respect has to be paid. But as far as physical or tangible outcomes of the construction aspect of the building, I am not aware of any problems or deficits to that.
I appreciate you thinking about that. I think the historical factor is very important in
I
our
do too.
community, and I would imagine that there might be ways to preserve some small relics and have those in the news
I would agree.
station.
Something like selling bricks or the beer cans in the walls.
Yeah, I know. I was just going to say, now they have snakes coming into the building. But, Donna, I think what the other thing that is really kind of neat about this way of going
Yeah.
is that we could now really make a firehouse that fits into the neighborhood.
Yep.
And, because it doesn't have to be brick veneer, it doesn't have to be, I mean, there's a lot of nice things that we could do
Yeah.
out there. And that was thrown around a lot, so.
If I might bounce
Yeah.
off of that, John, thank you for that, and I think I have Patrick's nod on this, but we've also discussed, as John knows, that one of the $220,000 savings is based on a masonry brick building new. If we were indeed to look at wood framing with clapboard siding and something more fitting to the neighborhood, we could actually save more than the $220,000. So
But we don't have numbers on that.
No.
just yet.
we do not have that, but
Very, very.
but we do know that the two types of buildings, wood framing is sufficiently less than masonry.
Yeah. So at a time when the town is really looking at needing to be mindful of costs, it seems
Absolutely.
like an
Yes.
important recommendation. Thank you.
And we have been charged by the building committee to continue to look for those options and savings.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Anybody else on the board?
Yeah, I think there's a general perception that new construction costs more than renovation, and I think it's important to emphasize that what the Citizens Committee recommended is something that's actually going to be cheaper to build new.
Yeah.
Not having to move that Vermont Yankee siren, I think there's electric transformers there.
Oil tank, septic
Oil
tank,
tank, septic
septic.
tank.
Yeah, it's a real mess. The other thing I wanted to clarify, because a couple times you mentioned the term, you and John both, these are rough numbers. And I just wanted to reemphasize that when construction starts, the numbers will not be rough.
Oh, no.
That's going to be, and I would just ask you to once again explain about how that process works.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. I wouldn't be, first off, I want to express very clearly, I wouldn't be here tonight if I didn't have full confidence in that belief that the new building is cheaper. I've seen the numbers, and I've been in this situation many, many times, and this is a strategy or a very important decision-making time. I don't take this recommendation lightly. I take this as a very important aspect of the process. But I'm here to tell you with 100% confidence that I believe it is more cost-effective to build the new than it is to renovate and add on to that building. That said, I will continue to prove that point through the estimating and costing process so that it doesn't run away from us, as every project has the capacity to do. But we will provide continual updating of estimating via the construction manager to make sure that the project does stay, as proposed here tonight, cost-effective, substantially more cost-effective, and that we'll continue to update you accordingly.
Thank you.
I just more have a process question.
Go for it, yeah.
Where do we, like, what do we do with this information that we've
Yeah.
just received?
I guess I'll respond to that at this point, because I also want to speak to the agenda item a little bit. Where we stand right now in the process as a whole is that we've hired the construction manager, we've hired the architects, we have the project manager on board, and we are in the design phase where we're costing out the project and designing the project very preliminarily at this point, like John and Steve have said a lot of times. And we're trying to identify if there are areas of cost savings as part of this initial scoping or rescoping work following the Black River design. And that is what we asked the committee to do and what we asked Steve to do. So thank you very much for working on these potential cost savings. It does involve somewhat of a change in what was presented to town meeting. I think what hasn't really been clearly explained, although we've talked about the gravel parking lot, is essentially what we would now be proposing or thinking about building is a firehouse pretty much right on Western Ave, because the gravel parking lot is between Western Ave and the current fire station. So essentially the building would be moved closer to Western Ave, and I guess we would contemplate it facing out onto the avenue, the bays.
My perception of that would be in the mouth of the intersection would be the best angle for the trucks to come out.
But I don't
view
think it's
the
closer to
traffic.
Western Avenue.
It wouldn't be, it would not be
Right.
perpendicular to Western
Right.
Avenue. I
So
think
the
it would be
trucks would
set
come
at
out at an angle.
Right, but the
Right.
building itself would be further north than where the current building is?
No.
Not north. It would be
East.
west. It would be,
Gotcha.
well, yeah, it would be north.
North, it'd be
Take
towards
that.
Western Avenue. The gravel parking lot is where the dumpsters used to be.
Yeah.
Right, but actually, if you look at it, if you look at the firehouse now, it's to the left of that, because the gravel
Yeah.
parking lot goes back.
Closer to
But no-
Stockwell's.
John's not agreeing because it's actually northeast, not north.
All right,
Right.
all right. But I think it's closer to the road,
Yes.
towards the main Route 9 there.
It is.
I don't know.
Yes.
I'm pretty confident of that because it's into the gravel parking lot where the recycling bins used to
You're
be.
the chair, I'm not arguing.
Well, is that, am I?
You're absolutely correct.
Okay.
All right, so we're talking about it being on Western Ave essentially, maybe opening into the
It's a
angle
state
there.
highway, that may not be an easy thing to do.
Well, it's still,
That's
no,
something we're not gonna solve.
here's where we're getting confused a little bit. It's still opening up onto South Street.
Right.
It's not opening up onto Western Avenue. It's basically how it comes out now. The trucks come out, and they have very little room to back in because of that little island that
Correct.
is now in West Brattleboro. So this is going to be pushed over. I still say east, and kitty corner a little bit so that it comes out, and they have more room to back in. It's much safer. It's still on South Street. It's not emptying out onto Western Avenue.
Right.
I want to make sure that's very clear, that it's still inside that nice little cubbyhole.
So it's a little different place than it was, whether
Yes.
it's moving east or north.
Yes.
And we're talking now about a little bit different concept in
Yes.
that
Yep.
instead of renovating and adding, we're building new.
Yes.
I think probably the board should consider a motion to endorse further investigation of building
On the
new
school property.
on the school property.
Yeah.
Investigate building new on that school property in place of renovation and addition.
Okay, now there could be two, because like Steve said, we're not really bound to having that land from the school to do this. It would be nice. So, I mean, there may be two charges. One, to have Patrick look into negotiations with the school district. If we can come up to some kind of equitable, whatever, and then the second is to build new as opposed to renovating. I
In
don't know
the
how you
existing
make-
footprint.
Yep.
Yeah.
Using the existing footprint, yeah.
And then the other thing I would say is that I think that what was presented to the voters was general concept. But our core goal throughout this process
Yes.
has been to ensure that we can provide the necessary fire and police services over the useful life of this project going forward. And if there's a more cost-effective way to do
Exactly,
it
yes.
than what Black River originally presented, I think we got a responsibility to look at it, particularly if it's going to save us money.
Yeah. I
Absolutely.
think that's the charge that has been out there from day one. To see, to build something that's going to last into the future and to see if we can save money. When this was brought to us, again, as a builder, I just went, this is a no-brainer. This makes very, very good sense. So,
Would you like to make the motion?
No, can I ask a question first?
sure.
I just want to ask a question first. If we, and I think we really have to be careful what language we use.
Yes.
If we do a motion that says we're going to investigate whatever we're going to, if we're going to build new, does the committee come back to us and do we endorse building new, or how does that work?
I think you could do it any number of different ways. I think what we were looking for at the committee, and John, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, is we wanted to confirm with the select board that
Yes.
it was your understanding that we weren't wedded to the concept of renovation and addition, and that we're open to allowing us, as the staff and the professionals that we've hired to explore this and, among the options that we are exploring, and that, should it prove to be the most viable, it would then, what we bring forward in future designs would then, not be limited in the way we feel perhaps they are today.
Okay, because my general question is, and this is, I just want to be really careful with this, so that everybody out in TV land and whoever reads the paper or listens to the radio tomorrow, are we tonight endorsing scrapping the plans to build, make the additions and build new? Do you see what I'm saying? I want to be really, really clear.
I would suggest
that we don't go.
That rather than put your eggs in that basket necessarily and say, we will do this, that the sentiment of the board is that they are open to considering options which include knockdown and new construction.
But when it comes, we do this, I think I don't want to pound this, but I want to just be clear what we're doing, is that we say, because I think it's a great idea to explore it, I'm all into exploring it, but when does the decision come that that's what we're going to build new versus we're going to just go with the plans that everybody saw at town meeting? See what my question is?
Steve, maybe you can
I
explain
understand
the
the question
process
exactly.
going forward.
I'm dying to answer it,
Yeah.
too.
Excellent, go for it.
Frankly, the sooner the better. And that the decision is made to build new or to renovate. And the reason why is because we're setting out the architect and the engineers really this week, with directions. And they will be putting thousands of hours into design in the next month or two and months following that. And frankly, we need to tell them whether we'd like to see a new building or a renovated building.
And we've asked for an aggressive schedule from
Yeah,
them.
and we have.
Yeah.
And so the sooner the better as far as, and this is how I would break it down, I would ask, if it's possible, of course, that the select board decide if it's okay to pursue the new building option as one motion. Then I would ask the select board if it's okay to pursue the possibility of working something out with the school district to either arrange to receive that land and or trade for that land or some option like that. I'm getting ahead of myself, but that's one of my ideas, is trade the land. And so I would break it into two parts. Can we build new?
Yes.
And can we look at the school property as number two? So.
Because I don't think a decision needs to be made. I just think that they need some kind of a focus to go with.
I move that the Select Board endorse continued investigation of building the West Brattleboro Fire Station Number 2 new, rather than renovating the existing station with an addition.
So moved. Oops. Donna has
I
a,
have one more comment.
So that's a motion. Is there any further discussion, Donna?
Yes, thank you. I wonder if we can decide tonight to permit building new and just have our motion be to explore with the school the possibility of a trade or purchase of the land, knowing that if we move forward, if we approve that tonight, it can be built one way or the other, even if things don't work out with the school, correct? There's a
Yeah.
way to do
Yes.
that doesn't involve the need for school ground.
yep.
So my question to the board is, can we approve that tonight? Because it seems like it could be expensive to delay that decision.
I think that we can approve it. I think it may be premature, and I also think that there are a series of design and planning decisions that are going to have to come back to us anyway over the course of the coming months. And so, based upon what I've heard, I think that continued investigation of that alternative is probably appropriate right now. But if the board doesn't agree,
Well,
It can
we
proceed
are
differently.
under a little bit of a time crunch. So I would love to see it voted on. And I know, because we're not going to have another meeting until
15.
the 15th. And when do we meet again?
20-something, yeah.
20-something, but again, it's,
24th.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with Don on this, and I think the committee would like to see some kind of, just, again, I don't, and I want to make this public, and, I don't see a downside to this. There's not one thing, as a select board person, as a town resident, as a former town rep, I don't see where there's a downside to this. It's doing everything that we've really asked the committee to do. And that's to try to lower this, to do the best they can, and this was just a great surprise the other day to have this come before us. Whether we get the land from the school or not, no, I don't think that's a big problem. It would be wonderful if we could, but I would love to see a vote tonight. So, and I'm in favor of it.
I realized that the entire dialogue has been the board and the project manager, and so I want to make sure. I've seen a reporter raise his hand, I've seen the chief raise his hand, but I want to know if there's anybody who wants to speak to any of the items that we've just been addressing. I'll call on you, chief, first.
Thank you. Just one quick thing to keep in mind on the cost factors here. The conceptual design for 1.3, 1.4 included only an addition and some minor renovations downstairs. It included nothing upstairs at Station 2. We're now getting a new facility for some $220,000 less, which I think is certainly something to consider.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Howard, did you have a question?
Yeah, Steve, you said originally the project was about $200,000 less than budget. That doesn't include this whole plan?
It does. No. Let me carefully answer that. Let me be sure of your question. If we took the three projects as presented in the study by Black River, the pricing as we received from DEW in total was $200,000 less. However, if we then took the consideration of not renovating the existing station number 2, but building new, we could save an additional $220,000.
And does that include any costs if the school sells you the land? I mean,
It does not.
So there's no cost for that or any?
There's no cost for the school land considered in those numbers.
Right.
Is there anybody else who's in attendance who has comment or wants to speak to it at all? Another chief.
Dick Guthrie, Brattleboro. I worked in this building for 31 years, and I want to applaud the committee coming up with the new construction for station number 2. My main concern is watching renovations to this building over the last 30, 40 years and what the cost factor was to those renovations. And looking at Essex Junction building a new police station that is supposed to planned out for 40 years in the future, and their department is about the same as the Brattleboro Police Department. And their total cost of their project is much less than the renovations to this project. And then I look at the Keene Fire Station, who has a brand new fire station from the bottom up to the top. And their proposed cost was much less than this proposed cost. And so I say yes. Maybe the committee should go further and look at new construction versus remodeling. To remodel this building could be a disaster. And I don't know how many heating systems that I worked around being installed in this building, and air conditionings, and new windows. And it never solved the problem. This building, when I started working here in 1961, as a police officer, we had one classroom, just about as big as this room here, for our Brattleboro Police Department. back then in 1961, I can remember Chief Putnam saying, "I hope this is a short stay for us. We got to get out of here." God bless the Brattleboro Police Department. They're still living with it, and it looks like we're tied to something in the future. But I think we're throwing money out the window. And I again want to applaud your committee for coming up with this cost savings and coming out with a new construction and probably a better floor plan than was before. Thank you.
Anybody else who's in attendance want to speak to this? Dave, I know you have a...
Yeah, just wanted to check that the cost projected for the new building includes taking down the other one and planting grass?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. May I comment?
Steve, yeah.
And I know the hour's getting late, but to the chief.
Oh, it's still early.
To the good chief's point, and that is that it's very early yet, but I just want to reassure the public as well as the board that we are indeed looking at options for the police station. It's quite preliminary, but I have decided in my own little world kingdom that the idea of putting a basement underneath the new police station adjacent to the old building here would cost about $100,000 to $150,000 in shoring and sheeting, we call it, i.e. propping up the old building, which would be an entire waste of money that no one would ever benefit from. And so we are indeed thinking about those things and have begun discussions with the police department, particularly Chief Wren, in regards to whether or not we have to have a basement and waste that money. Whereas we could put the same services upstairs in the new addition and provide daylighting to the good folks and save about $150,000 in excavation and shoring and sheeting work. In that same discussion, we are talking also about separating the two buildings so that we do not have to renovate the old building. If we separate the new building from the old building, we're not required by code to do as much seismic bracing and so forth, et cetera. So we are taking into consideration all of those thoughts, and we hope to be able to provide more savings to the townspeople accordingly.
What I would note in response to your inquiry about just approving it today is that although the committee has discussed it in the past, the issue that Steve came to us with initially is that it's a different concept from what was originally presented to town meeting and approved by town meeting. And I think that our charge is clearly to meet programmatic needs for the foreseeable future and save money. But with the issue just having arisen for the first time today, my preference is to phrase this in terms of investigation rather than approval. But whatever the board's pleasure is, will be what is adopted. But that's why I prefer to have it as investigation rather than approval.
That makes sense to me, and I think we could just decide to go with that. I could go with that motion, and then we would commit to trying to approve it as early as possible, once our research has been conducted.
So when is the earliest that we can't approve it until the 15th?
Well, we can always have a special meeting, push comes to shove, if we're ready to do that,
Okay.
if it's a pressing need.
Okay. Then I will.
Yeah, with that caveat,
I will concede to that.
Anybody else on the board? Mr. Sprite?
Thank you. Fritz Bright, District 3 Rep. I was wondering if the committee had looked into any pared down versions of the project.
We have not. We did go through the program room by room with the staff, and it was determined that every room had a purpose, and so we have not been charged with paring down the program. We have been charged with saving cost, however.
Okay. Well, I applaud you on that one, and I would urge the committee and the board to consider reducing the scope of the project. It is very clear to me that the taxpayers of this town can't afford a big hit right now, and if things go as they might be able to afford it even less in the foreseeable future of paying off this bond. So I urge all of you strongly to consider creative and minimalist options. I know that the rest of us are having to do that in our lives, so the town needs to follow suit.
We have a motion, which was to endorse continued investigation of building the West Brattleboro Fire Station new rather than via renovation and addition of the existing facility. Is there any further discussion on that motion from the board or anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. And then we also have a follow-up motion, which is to authorize the interim town manager to pursue negotiations with the school district about the possibility of relocating the West Brattleboro Fire Station to town school district property.
So moved.
Is there any further discussion about that from anybody on the board or anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Is there any further police fire-related business, Steve, that you want to bring to our attention?
Not this evening, thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Always good to have you here.
Thanks, Steve.
So the next matter on the agenda is the WE90 Technology Drive Solar Electric Generation Facility. Rod, thanks for coming. Thank you. Maybe if you could give a brief synopsis of both the procedural issue that's with us tonight and what our previous submission has been, expressing the town's point of view.
Okay, thank you. If you refer to the memo that was included in your packets, I referenced the last time I was before you on this matter, which was June 18th, and that was in the company of representatives from WE90 Technology Drive LLC and their agents, including Pete Van Noot from Downs Rackland Martin. They were in the process of applying for what is referred to in the language of the Public Service Board, a certificate of public good, which amounts to a permit or permission to operate a facility. In this case, it's a 2 megawatt solar electric generation array on a parcel of land adjacent to I-91, accessed off Putney Road. In the proceedings of that night, many people came forth and offered comment, and the board discussed the project at length and had questions for the applicants, or the petitioners, as the Public Service Board would refer to them as. Subsequent to that, they filed their petition with the Public Service Board, and they elected to seek what is referred to in the Public Service Board terminology as a 248J. So subsection J is an expedited process, and a true J process, a truly expedited process, would eliminate the need for the Public Service Board to conduct a public hearing. And so the petitioners were within their rights to request a J, an expedited process, and the board has the discretion to determine that that's the way they want to proceed.
The board, the Public Service Board.
The Public Service Board, right. So that petition was filed with the Public Service Board on August the 19th, and then on September the 20th, the Public Service Board assigned it what they call a docket number. So there's now a tracking number for this application, and it's docket number 8111. They determined or announced that they were going to process this application as a J, which is an expedited process, and they have, according to their procedures, we had 28 days from the time of that notice to file comment if we felt that there were substantive reasons with respect to their criteria that we think there should be a hearing. And that's basically the summary of events. What I have here with me is I have the petition from the petitioners, including the pre-filed testimony. That includes the the letter that I prepared on behalf of the chair of the Planning Commission, which was also circulated to you on Monday. It's a lengthy document with a brief cover letter that summarizes the comments provided here for the agenda item on June the 18th, and then also includes any written comment that the Planning Commission or my office received in the time that the matter was under discussion. That's included in the petition, so therefore it's something that the Public Service Board has reviewed, and so have statutory parties to the application. So what I've tried to do is summarize what the next steps for the Select Board representing the town could be, and that's where we end up with the table, which basically gives the town 4 choices. The first one is not respond at all, and there are certain advantages to that. It's cheap and it's easy. In fact, it's extremely cheap. Then the next one is to file for interested person status. In the terminology of the state of Vermont and the Public Service Board, they use the term person rather than party. It's not entirely clear to me why. That would mean that we would simply be on the CC list for advice to all other parties to the matter, and we would simply be receiving information about when and where various activities within the process of hearing the petition would take place, but we wouldn't have the ability to provide testimony of our own, to attend any of the meetings, or to involve ourselves. We could comment, but it would not end up in evidentiary record, which means that it would not influence the Public Service Board in their decision-making process. We could request a hearing, and effectively what that is taking the opportunity now, within that 28-day period, of responding to the Public Service Board and saying, with respect to their own substantive criteria, and it would be 248B5, that we think that there is grounds for conducting a hearing. And I've actually prepared a draft letter to that effect, if that is what the board decides tonight. And then so the pros and cons of that are it effectively lends support to any other request for a hearing, and I have reason to believe that statutory parties to this application would prefer to have a hearing. It would formalize, in a way, the town's expectation that the public process for a project of this scale should involve a public hearing. And then the cons are that the Public Service Board could receive that letter and shred it. There's no obligation on their part they don't have to argue against it, they don't have to interpret it, they can just say yes or no. They're not obligated to explain. The fourth strategy would be to intervene. Because we're the host community, it's recognized that we would have a strong basis for saying that we wanted to be an intervener. An intervener is a party to the proceedings here. And we could draft a motion using the substantive criteria that I cited before. We could maybe prepare a brief, and we could attend hearings. The challenge there is that the notice can be less than 1 working day, where it's something of a disadvantage given our ability to access Montpelier. The advantages are we have complete involvement, that we can give testimony, and that testimony would have to be considered by the Public Service Board. The disadvantage is that we'd have complete involvement, and it's sort of no backing out. It would be expensive for, so I think the cost-benefit analysis that you conduct tonight is important there. We'd have to prepare a brief, which is not particularly troubling, but would be time-consuming. And we could be challenged by the petitioner or any other party. I think we're okay with the other parties. Don't let my chances up against the petitioner necessarily. So that's the fourth one. So my recommendation is something like a blend of 2 and 3. Minimum cost, maximum effect, and making the principal position known that within reason we would expect a public board that's going to award a certificate of public good to an entity that expects to operate the facility for some 40 years at a profit, that part of that process would involve a public hearing. So, would you like me to circulate the draft letter?
If you want to pass it across the table, that'd be great.
Sure.
I don't know if anybody on the board has got a comment. I know that I'd like to comment.
Go first.
Dave, go ahead.
Well, I think I attended the first planning commission meeting about this project, and I attended the ag committee meeting about the project, and I also was here for our hearing on it. And I think the only concern is mitigating the visual effects, and I think that was summed up in the letter from James Valenti, the chair of the planning committee. And I think that's enough. I think I would prefer we do the interested person approach, and if we want to, that we do comment as the public, that we would like to have that considered, but not go any further with it. I think Win Stanley has shown themselves to be a good corporate citizen, and the Public Service Board isn't going to ignore what we say, whatever form we put it in. And I think that to get in the way of this process, I think we're just being unnecessary holding back of something that's going to meet a lot of our town's goals and be a real benefit to the town. That's my sense.
I'm not as confident about the decision on not being seen from 91. I would love to see it. I have no problem against solar panels. I just don't think they need to be in our face. And I have a sneaking suspicion that, and I'm just one of 5, that it's going to be very visible. So that is my concern. So I would like to be a little bit more involved. We are the host town. So I would like to see us just a little bit more involved than an interested party. So I would like to step it up to either 3 or 4. I know it's going to be a little bit more work, but...
Oh, you want 4? Is that what you're saying?
I'm thinking 3 or 4. I didn't go the 2 or 3 route, sorry. But I think you're a very smart gentleman, and writing a brief would be a no-brainer for you. But I would like to see us go that route.
Yeah.
Ready?
I'm all for solar.
Yep.
So this is not an issue for me for solar. It is the aesthetics, and I think people talked about that at the last meeting. But I also think for me it's a question of the principle of going forward with something and not having a hearing on it, especially when it impacts, our community. So I'm not the interested person. I think we at least should request a hearing, because I think that is on just a principle for us to allow something to go on with our community and not have a public hearing about it is really where I am at this. Yeah, I might be up at...
Might be informed.
Yeah, Donna.
I agree with Kate. I think the hearing is a really important part of this process. And personally, again, one of 5, I would love for those panels to be visible from 91. I think we set an example as a community that is moving forward around solar power. I know that people have very strong feelings in either direction of that, but I do think that a hearing is important. I'm not at 4 because it sounds expensive. It sounds like it could be dragged out. It sounds like there might be hearings scheduled that would be hard to attend. And I think the cost is a factor in this, but definitely I'm at 3.
So I'm in favor of making a hearing request as well. What I would note, and what hasn't yet been articulated, although it is in the memo that you prepared for us, is that we do anticipate that the Agency of Natural Resources and the Public Service Department will be requesting an independent aesthetic impact report. And the request for that independent aesthetic impact report is a really important factor for us. We heard from many people at the public hearing who were in favor of solar power, and I think all of us in the room and all of us on the board are in favor. We, in fact, have entered into contract for solar array to help gather solar power and fund or power some of our facilities that way. But this is a development, commercial solar power development, passive, not active commercial activity, passive, but that would be totally visible on the highway, and that I anticipate would be there, like you said, for a period of 30 or 40 years. And it seems to me that some addressing of the aesthetic impact is necessary in a public forum. So I'm in favor of that as well. Dave?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I feel like we had that public forum here, and we received emails, we received letters, and we had people come and comment on it. I think that we have done that, and the Public Service Board is the one that's ultimately going to decide whether this is in the public interest, and the Agency of Natural Resources is going to look into the natural resources effects of it. So I think it's a redundant function. I don't think it keeps the public from expressing their view or talking about it, because they already have. It was well advertised in the paper. We had a big turnout at that meeting. And I think it's just an unnecessary extra step that we're going to put a business through to try and do something that we all support they're doing. So that's why I think we should just expedite it. Let the people that have the responsibility for making those decisions make them. Go ahead.
Well, again, I mean, nobody here on the board, and I can speak for everyone that is against solar power. To me, it's the location. And Donna, I'm going to disagree with you. I don't think that it's a bring it on. Bring it on. All right. I just I don't think it's a progressive view that seeing solar panels in a beautiful state like this, where we don't have billboards, we don't have naturally depicts that we're on the forefront of technology. To me, it's an eyesore. It's like and to me, I equate it to the old satellite dishes, that were huge in the backyard, and they were everywhere, and now they're the size of this. I think that's what our technology is going to get down to, and right now they're just big, and I may be outvoted on this, they're big and ugly. I see no aesthetic value with them at all. They're not pretty, they're not, to me, they're just a big, and they cover a lot of ground, of good green grass, and so that's why I think we should have more public input on this.
I wonder whether in the request for hearing we can include some reference to the independent aesthetics assessment, because I do think that that's an important factor, because I think that's what we're looking at and what I hear people being the most concerned about.
I get consideration to that. I guess I've learnt of that the Agency of Natural Resources and the Public Service Department are contemplating requesting that, but I don't know where that's going to end up. And so I didn't necessarily want to include in the letter the suggestion that something's been organized in any way, and I think that they, as statutory parties, can request that and have standing in a way that is different from ours. And if we were to go to the interested person route and then comment on the need for a hearing, I think that we're performing within the boundaries that's acceptable in terms of our ability to participate, and that if we were to go much beyond that at this point, I think I would need to make some kind of defense of the need for that with reference to the petition, and I think that I think it's a reasonable thing to request, and I don't think it's difficult to understand why somebody would want to request something such as that. But I don't feel that the town is necessarily in a position to justify that request. as distinct from the Public Service Department and the Agency of Natural Resources. I should add, just picking up on a point from Dave, while not you, David, the other
I
David.
understood. Hell, I understood. I'm
David
not sure,
Yates.
but I understood.
Right. The Public Service Department has, as part of its role, public advocacy. And so when we declare, if and when we declare interested personhood and then make the comments that that I laid out in that draft letter, then we can reasonably expect that the Public Service Department would keep our interests as an interested person in mind as they make argument before the board on the same matter. And so part of the strategy here is to give at least some material to the Public Service Department to further their ability to request a hearing. So the strategy here is to try and add weight to the call for a hearing. And I would set aside, I would distinguish that objective or that principle from the meeting or the hearing. We didn't conduct a hearing. We invited Winstanley as guests, and there was an item on the agenda here, and it didn't conform to anything that would. Nothing that took place in that meeting conformed to the expectations or requirements of an actual land use development hearing that we ourselves conduct through the Development Review Board on those questions. You know, they've been before the Development Review Board for various matters associated with this project, and that was undertaken appropriately. But what I'd say is they hadn't determined that they were going to apply for an expedited process at that point. There was some discussion on that evening about what the process was going to be, and there was mention made of the Public Service Board conducting a hearing, and then they subsequently requested a process that did away with a hearing. And so all I'm trying to point out here is the strong message, which is the Public Service Board obviously does, on some level, have to consider the public interest, but it's framed in terms that are not necessarily specific to the interests or concerns of the community.
Is there anybody in attendance who wants to speak to this matter? Dora?
Thank you. Dora Bubalis, Brattleboro. It will come as no surprise to anyone in this room that I'm going to advocate for more public process. I think, as Rod stated, a meeting that the Select Board has in which people just are invited and they come and they talk about a project is very different from a public hearing. I also agree with John.
Oh my God!
that
I'm writing this one down. What's
we've
the
agreed
date?
before.
It's the first.
I think
This
the
is
town.
blowing my mind right now. I'm telling you.
The town has, when the town hears concerns from a number of its citizens that something about aesthetics or whatever it is, that if the town has the ability to advocate for those folks, and a town has greater standing than any individual citizen does. So citizens have the right, if there is a public hearing, to go to a public hearing and express their concerns. And to count on something that may or may not come from the Agency of Natural Resources is, you know, that's sort of penny wise and pound foolish, because we don't know what they're going to do. We also don't know, even if they did take this on, what they would come up with and what, you know, and what the actual report would say. So I think at least being able to advocate as a town and taking a stand. I don't know if you need to go to level 4 and take on full intervener status, but I do think that the town, being an interested party and being able to, you know, put in to testify and at least put in some legal stuff. I think, you know, Rod probably has a good point about advocating for the public hearing first, and then going, you know, deciding to go beyond that might make sense. But I think that sometimes sometimes the town is afraid to has in the past been afraid to kind of go in there and take a stand as an interested party in some of these things. And I think it's important because the town has more weight than the individual citizens.
Thank you, Dora. Do you still want to speak?
Yeah, sure.
Make sure to give your name. I didn't remember your name.
My name's Bill Senior. I live in town. My understanding is this is 2 kilowatts of production. Is that correct?
2 megawatts.
2 megawatts. And what percentage of the total power need for the town is 2 megawatts?
I can't remember the rough estimate, but I think it's something like this is enough electricity for 160 homes or something in a year.
And there's how many homes? There's 3,000 something in Brattleboro?
More than that.
And my point is this, that you better get this right, because one hopes after closing Yankee that we're going to have more of these projects, and we want to get it right subsequently. This is in fact a very small project in terms of power production for the state, for Brattleboro. And there was going to be plenty more, I hope, plenty more discussions about solar energy and aesthetics and all that kind of other business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else who's in attendance want to speak to this matter? Yes, Mr.
Just
McCarty.
very briefly, William McCarty, and I can remember about 20 years ago when another good civic project that was planned for that exact same location was turned down because of the visual impact. And I think this is something that we cannot allow the people in Montpelier. They're all nice people, but we can't rely on them watching out for the town of Brattleboro. And I think this board recognizes its own responsibility that it should protect the town, and I think that definitely a 3 or a 4, certainly, or between 3 and 4, would be most appropriate to protect the town and the citizens, and also to prepare for the future.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Anybody else in attendance want to speak to this matter? Well, I think we might be ready for a motion to, listening to everything that's been said, to request a hearing from the Public Service Board and to endorse the letter in the form that's been presented to us by the planning director.
Is that your motion?
I move, just like I said.
So moved.
All right. We get that motion, Jeff? Is there any further discussion from anybody on the board, or is anybody who's in attendance? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 4-1 with Mr. Scholes voting nay. Thanks, Rod, for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next matter on the agenda is skate park basics request to downsize the design. I know we've got some representatives from the skate park, and anybody who, from the committee, anybody who wants to take the table is invited to do so. Make sure to introduce yourselves, please.
Hi, thank you for hearing us and putting us on the agenda.
Spencer and Joe.
I'm Spencer Crisp.
Thanks, Joe. I know who you are. I know who he is, too. But Spencer Crisp.
Joseph
Bushy.
Bushy.
Yeah, right there. There's a team. Spencer, how can we help you tonight?
We just want your permission, and we're requesting your permission in a vote tonight to just make an adjustment to our skate park by downsizing it from 11,000 square feet to approximately 5,000 square feet, all within the same footprint. Aesthetics and safety would all be the same. We just want to eliminate the more expensive features such as the bowl, which is the swimming pool feature that in and of itself costs almost $100,000. And we're looking to see if the select board will grant us permission to work towards fundraising at that size, at an adjusted size that is more palatable for hopefully breaking ground next year.
We've received your letter. Thank you, Jeff. And I'd like to, before we open it up to comment from people who are in attendance, I'd like to just make sure whether there's anybody else from the committee, the basic committee, who wants to speak to the matter at this point. Not right now. And then the next opportunity would be for anybody on the board who wants to speak to the matter or ask any questions before we open it up for comments from the public. John?
No, I just
No?
think I'll have one. I'll have one after I hear, you know, how the pros and cons.
Anybody on the board want to speak right now?
I have one clarifying question.
Yep.
Yeah, in your letter, it said that the downsize would be all within the same footprint?
That's correct.
And at the same time, the smaller design would allow the play structure to stay where it is, and I don't see how that works. If it's the same footprint, how does it not?
Within the same footprint. So there will be, in other words, if the size of the skate park at 11,000 square feet that you approved, we're not going out of that size to reorient it at all. Can we use the board?
Yeah, visual would help me for sure.
In other words, let's say this is truly the 11,000 square feet. We're not looking to go like that at 5,000 square feet. So it will still be all within this area. It's almost like cropping a photo in Photoshop or something. Here's what we have. So the play structure is in this region. Just go. This is gone, and this is our skate park. So within that same parameters that were already approved, it's really not a big deal.
I thought that the park was going to be in an area where the play structure is now, and that's why you had to move the play structure. Or actually,
yeah, because before in this footprint at 11,000 square feet, it would be too close to the play structure, and our group of volunteers was going to have to absorb the cost to move the play structure.
Actually, you were going to have to buy a new one.
But to buy a new one, correct?
Right.
That's the swings that might be. Now, what's particularly great about adjusting the size is you'll have all this space in between where the play structure is and the skate park ends to allow that to stay where it is, which is great. Okay.
So it's a smaller footprint.
All right.
Yeah.
It's a smaller.
Thank you, Spencer. I think what I'm going to do before we open it up to comment is just briefly, I'm going to address some procedural issues. I think it's fair to say, and I have the materials here, that in the spring of 2010, the Select Board formed the basic committee with the charge to raise funds for the planning and implementation of a skateboard park and amenities on the Crowell lot. Committee be responsible for development of the park design, all work would be in coordination with the recreation director.
I was on the.
Right, John was here at the time.
Yep.
Following the formation of that committee, an application was presented to the Development Review Board that contemplated skateboard park in a range of 12,000 feet originally?
That's correct.
Yes.
12,000 feet. And that was approved by the Development Review Board, and an appeal was taken thereafter. And as a result of the appeal and negotiations that followed, the size of the park was brought down to 11,000 square feet, and there was some provisions relating to buffering. The board of the Select Board was then presented by BASIC with request for proposal to build that skate park at that size, or to get a design for building that skate park at that size. And the estimate for the building was about $360,000 as it came in from Stantec. And they put together designs that were presented to us at that size. There is nothing in the original charge to the committee talking about the size of the skate park or the cost to build it. Although I think it should be noted that all throughout these discussions, what's been presented and proposed has been something in the $350,000 range, in the range of 11 or 12,000 square feet. So this is really a difference, a significant difference in size and scope than what's been presented to the select board and to the public for a series of years. With that, I think that we'll just take whatever comment there is from the public, and then the board will comment and make a decision how to proceed. I'm going to ask everybody, please, to keep their comments to 2 minutes or as close to that amount as possible. Andy?
Good evening. My name is Andy Davis. I am a District 3 representative, but I'm here tonight as a representative of a group known as Recite the Skate Park. Not have one, recite it, and preserve the Kroll lot. I did prepare a letter, and I think we made an effort to get it to all of you. Would you like a copy? I'm not sure the town manager. Would you like a copy?
Sure.
I got a copy.
I think the select board members probably received copies.
You can share theirs as staff.
The skate park project proposed for the Kroll lot is at a critical decision-making point. Despite approval from the DRB, the Select Board, and the Town School Board, the project has not achieved financial support in Brattleboro. In fact, support from some funding sources has been recently withdrawn, and BASIC has accomplished less than 15% of its fundraising goal. BASIC is coming before you. BASIC is the Brattleboro Area Skate Park is coming committee, which is the town committee, is coming before you with a request tonight to reduce the size and cost of this project. I'm not sure the size of the reduction is really an adjustment. It's a significant change of project, and I think it has some ramifications here. Before simply approving this, we, Recite, request that you reflect on the situation and table this proposal for a fuller and more thoughtful consideration. Simply approving the request to downsize the skate park may seem like an easy decision to make. What's wrong with smaller? But a closer look reveals more opportunities in this matter, opportunities for creativity and even for success of this project. Why has the skate park at Kroll lot not attracted public financial support? Could it be that many people in Brattleboro, not just abutters, I'm not an abutter, many people in Brattleboro do not support a skate park at this location? Kroll lot is at the top of two prominent downtown hills, High Street, Green Street, and of course Union Hill. It is a much-loved green space, and it lacks parking, supervision, and bathroom facilities. These objections come up continually. I'm not even going to bring up the process issue. This downsizing proposal tonight appears to be an attempt to get anything built as soon as possible. Will a downsized park even meet the needs of the people that are trying to build the skate park and serve the people they're building it for? Is this a strategy to get something going now with less funding and then come back later to build a larger park? Assurances have been made by the Brattleboro Rec Department that a skate park at the Kroll lot can only be built when all the funds have been raised. That has been made clear over and over again. Doesn't tonight's request effectively block ever expanding the skate park at this location? Because that would be tantamount to starting the project until more money comes in over the long term. Recite believes that building a smaller, less expensive project opens up a number of win-win scenarios. A smaller project will be easier to site at a location that will be truly supported financially by the people of Brattleboro. You're making it more than 50% smaller, which opens up more places to put it. A smaller skate park makes siting it at Memorial Park much more of a possibility. A smaller skate park needs to be in a location where it can be expanded over time. I don't think that could happen at Kroll lot under these conditions. The recent study by the Vermont Downtown Action Team, known as VDAT, was all over the paper a couple weeks ago, identified the Preston lot on Flat Street as a, quote, better location for a skate park than the Kroll lot. A smaller skate park, as being proposed tonight, makes that consideration much more easy to consider. It's time, we believe, to turn BASIC
which is a town committee, into a group that is free to consider more than one siting option. A bipartisan approach could move this project toward success. Please take time to reflect on these issues before simply rubber stamping the downsizing proposal. The movement to protect Kroll Lot has solidified since the first DRB hearings. It's time to take a step back and find a site that has the full support of Brattleboro residents. With a new site and community support, I'm personally convinced funding will follow. Thank you.
Anybody else want to speak to the matter? Yes, ma'am, for you to identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Brendan Carr. I just want to add to that Peter Whitley, who is the skate park guru, he works for Tony Hawk, clearly states in his manual that one of the biggest reasons for failure of a skate park is the lack of being able to accommodate different skill levels, and that people become bored with it. Kids become bored with it, and they don't attend it anymore. The past 2 summers in June, Basic has held a Go Skate Day. They bring food, they bring music, they bring ramps. However, they've only drawn, and it's on their Facebook page, 20 to 24 people show up for that. So, that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Carr. Mr. Sprite?
Rick Sprite, District 3 Rep. First of all, let me say I do support having a skate park. As ever, I feel like that location is a lousy location for it. The Preston lot sounds good. I think Memorial Park would be a far more appropriate place. With our earlier discussion about having a hearing about the solar panels, I'd love to see solar panels on every roof. I'd rather not see them on the grass, but you know, it's a commercial site. I think they should be allowed to put them there. But you know, we're talking about public hearings. We're talking about having a public hearing on this, how important that is, and we haven't had one on the issue of the skate park. And if you approve this motion, I feel like you're moving the goalposts on something which hasn't gotten a full airing in the first place. I would urge tabling it and instructing Basic to, with this new idea, look into other options that would have more support, and I would be prepared to help with that fundraising at a point when it lands in a place that seems more appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to speak? Mr. Clark.
Jeff Clark, I'm the chair of the Basic Town Subcommittee. I just wanted to give a little perspective about the actual size. It was mentioned about dropping it down from 11,000 to approximately 5,000 square feet. On the Go Skateboard Day, we have it on the court. The court does measure 76.5 by 50 feet, which is about 3,800 square feet. We do bring in ramps. It's not designed as a skate park, but we have a lot of fun, and there are a lot of age differences in the people that do attend. So if we do design something around the 5,000 square feet that is designed for skateboarding, it's definitely going to get a lot of use. As you've seen, as you walk around, the bricks, you know, they get a lot of use because it's fun, and of course, Shriners. So it's, you know, it'll definitely be used, and I'm sure you'll be proud of what we install. Thank you.
Thanks. Dr. Senior.
Neil Senior. Of course, I support a skateboard park. I actually support a YMCA in this town. I think that would even be a better option, but be that as it may. It strikes me that we're at 5,000 feet because there's a lack of money. I'm guessing that's the reason we're looking at 5,000 feet, because we can't raise enough for 11,000. It's worth remembering that 5,000 square feet is about 3 to 4 house footprints. This is not a small building. This is 3 to 4 ranches. And the fact that there's not enough money to build the structure raises questions for me about the lease arrangement, which my understanding is going to happen here. It's going to be leased from the school board. And it raises questions about where's the money that's going to be generated for ongoing maintenance. Is there going to be lighting? Who's going to pay for the lighting? Who's going to pay for the cleaning, the removal of the graffiti? And if eventually this turns out to be not such a good idea, that, for instance, I don't know, skateboard parks cause concussions or something, and we want to remove it. Who's going to pay for the removal of that? Is this going to be a town obligation? Let me talk to the psychiatric issues. There was a recent NPR report, National Public Radio report, on a skateboard park in Manchester, New Hampshire. It was about 3 to 4 weeks ago. There was many comments made in the report about the increase in violence, crime, graffiti, vandalism, drug utilization. And it strikes me that we're building a site, we're recommending a site without adult supervision, which is a totally fascinating issue for this town, given that we now have lockdown in the schools. We, in fact, are not building anything where we want kids, adolescents, without adult supervision. Those of us who live in town go through the issue of Elliott Street, Harmony parking lot, and now the transportation center, where we have adolescents congregating without adult supervision. And yet here we are as a town proposing another site where essentially it's going to occur, and kids are going to do what kids do, and there's going to be a consequence for those of us who live within the abutting areas, and perhaps as a community. And I would strongly ask you to consider that the development team was just in town, and Kate, I know you were there because you opened up the presentation, very excited about what they had to say, but essentially the whole idea of aggregating these activities in cluster settings makes a whole lot of sense as opposed to building it next to a site where children and latency-age kids now use it as a playground. It's hard for me to see there's a compelling reason to do this as a town from a social point of view. Thank you very much.
Anybody else who's in attendance wants to speak to the matter? Yes, please, over here. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Keep. I am an abutter to this property, and I do not oppose a skate park, and initially not at this site, meaning sound reasonable. I have a child that would probably be interested. But that child went to skate park day several years ago, and I have 2 children. So I have a girl who's 25 and a son who's now 8. And there weren't any girls there. And I realized then that this would change the nature of the park, which is predominantly used by families, to a park that, with that footprint, was sort of dominated by male use. Now people say, well, this is Brattleboro, we'll change that, we'll do something different. But it wasn't different on each of the skate park days. And I'm concerned about this idea of taking something that's used by a diverse group and giving it to a particular group. And so my son may benefit, but if my daughter were that age, she would not have. So I have to think about what does that mean? What does it mean? And also, parks, all parks that have more women in attendance in them are safer parks. So I think this area of gender is important in the consideration. How are we changing the nature of this park? And who are we catering to? And I have brought it up, but I will remind everyone that it is owned by the school, and it's no longer a school, just a school issue. It is now a state park and park issue, which is the laws that schools are under to have equal access to male and female sports applies to this land as a school land, but also as a park land. So some of these considerations about who are we catering to, whose needs, and do we have a broader view? It's easy to make one thing. I am worried about the exit plan, because the minute you pour concrete, how you're going to get rid of that concrete, whose responsibility. And also, I already do what was suggested to us, which I resent as a suggestion that us as neighbors were going to police this park. As a neighbor, there are often times where I have to tell young people in this sort of liminal age not to wind the swings around so that the younger kids can't use them, or not to smash their bottles on the sign when walking by. But it really isn't my job to be policing an area that is unpoliced and unmonitored. It has improved in the trash cleanup and the attention paid, because that was another of the issues. It's also been referred to here that we were given some opportunity to oppose, and I attended that meeting, and we were basically told, you can give a few suggestions on making it a little prettier, but you're not going to get any foothold anywhere else. So if you want to have any effect on this whatsoever, you better compromise and offer up something like, hey, could you build a little berm or something? So there was never what I would call a hearing or process like this, where it would be here and the whole of the community is invited in about a community issue. And I hear this about the solar panels. You know, we're worried about solar panels from the highway. This is from our, you know, our main street down to our main street. So we should be concerned about the aesthetics of what is going to happen there. Look at some other skate parks if you want to know what they look like.
Thank you. Do you want to jump in now, John?
I just wanted to jump in on that point. I was on the board when this first came in, and there were, and I know there's going to be a lot of, and I think we can document this, there were plenty of meetings on this, on the skate park. And Dora, I know you're shaking your head, so we're probably not going to agree, but there were plenty of meetings on this. It was open meetings. It was open meeting after open meeting. So there was plenty of time for people to voice their opinion. And I'm going to leave it at that right now because I want to come back to something else at a little bit later date. But I just want to make sure that that's out there, that there were plenty of chances for people to weigh in on this.
Anybody else who's in attendance want to speak to the matter? Mr. McCarty?
Thank you, William McCarty. Gosh, John, I thought you and I would want to agree on something.
Well, that would have been two for the night, and I don't think I could take it.
We agreed a little bit previously, but I didn't want to push it.
I know.
But I don't think this is a small adjustment, and I don't think that this is just a minor change. This is a significant change from what we were talking about and what has been bantered about previously. Contrary to what John believes, I do not believe that this matter, this issue, was ever really discussed by the general public. There were some general discussions held with the select board, but it was never really vented. No decision was ever made by any independent group as to the location of this property and what was going to be done. I've lived in that area, and I've lived in this town for 46 years, and I've lived in that area for almost 40 years. And that park belongs to the young children and the young mothers of this town and to Green Street School. They are the people who use it. If we are to allow the skate park there, it will change the entire process, the entire visual issue, and the entire use. Now, Mr. Crisp has talked about that this is going to be a minor issue. Well, it's not going to be a minor issue. It's going to be a legal issue. They don't want to move the playground, which is used by very young children. They want to have it fairly close and very adjacent to the park. Now, these children, who are very, very young, and one of the conditions of the park and DRB and with the rec department is that those swings, etc., would be moved. They have got, if this is going to be built there, they've got to be moved. There are a multitude of issues that have never really been vented. The public health and the public safety, i.e. the traffic study committee, we're talking about one of the worst intersections in the town, along with down at the bottom with 142. But Union Hill is an absolute travesty and is unsafe for pedestrians trying to get across that intersection or even trying to find a crosswalk to service that park. There are a multitude of legal issues that must be addressed and, believe me, will be addressed at some point in time. But I do not think that this board, which has really tonight vented and gone over some significant issues and done it well, and had significant questions about that, can merely rubber stamp something that they don't even know anything about. There is no plan. We only have one thing being said. It's being reduced from 12 to 5, and that makes no sense whatsoever. How can you have and vote on something and you don't know what you're voting on? So I think this matter has got to be discussed, has got to be studied, and should be utilized, and we should all use an intelligent vote, not a vote that we want to do by the seat of our pants or what we believe is fair or appropriate, only after it's heard by everyone. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I address something about what's going on here?
Sure, go ahead.
I just want to say, we're not here to decide whether there's going to be a skate park there or not. That's already been decided. That was vetted and decided a long time ago. All we're here is to ask your permission to make it smaller. And I would like an opportunity at some point, doesn't necessarily need to be now, but just to address the questions that have been, some of the things that have been raised in the commentary, because a lot of them are very incorrect.
Other people? Yes, ma'am. I don't know your name. Make sure to identify yourself.
My name's Andrea Watkins. I'm here with my family, including my young daughter, even though it's past her bedtime.
Yes.
There are many other parents who use this park who it's way past their bedtime and they just can't come and talk about this issue. I am concerned that we were promised that the play space would move a significant distance away from the skate park. And that's changing. And parents like me, we don't have time to necessarily read the select board agenda. And I think the parents out there deserve time to read this in the news before you make a decision. And just keep in mind that there's little kids playing on this play space, and if you've seen them interact when there's lots of commotion around them, we're going to have little kids having accidents. They're going to try to get up the stairs to the slide, and they're going to be so distracted that they're going to fall down. It's not going to be the beautiful, green, serene space that we know and love at that park. Thank you.
Thank you. Doc?
Hi, thanks for hearing this. My name is Fritz Engstrom. I'd like to address two issues. One about the politics and one about safety. The safety issues, you may recall there was a letter to the editor by our former chief of police, Richard Guthrie, pointing out that that is routinely an unsafe park. They're routinely called there because of clandestine drug deals and others. And the safety issues pushed him to wake up the town to say, this is not a good place for it. Think about someone who loves the thrill of skateboards. What are they going to do when they get done playing for the day? Hey, let's go down Union Hill. That sounds like a lot of fun. And then what are we going to have when you have our first fatal accident? Someone sues the town and says, what were you thinking of when you put a skate park up there? Or when they're going down Green Street or High Street afterwards. If you look on the websites all about skateboard parks, they say they should be supervised. The good ones I've been to are supervised. This proposal, no supervision. We have no money in our park budget or our town budget for additional supervision. Where are they going to go to the bathroom? I'll tell you where they're going to go to the bathroom, but it's a mixed company. They have a water fountain that's been there the 10 years I've been living there that's never worked, much less a toilet. So that the security, the supervision issues are rampant. Second, on the politics, I've been to these meetings, and people go back and forth, as Mr. Allen does, about was there a full vetting of it? Were there open meetings? Suffice it to say, my brain trying to wrap myself around this controversy is it really doesn't matter. My take on it is that the neighbors, the people in Brattleboro who oppose it, suddenly woke up and thought, oh my gosh, they're talking about Kroll Park? There were talks about West River Park and other places. It wasn't until after the fact that they realized what was being proposed. And that has been so powerful. You have to talk about politics here. The politics, and I say this in the best sense, the politics is that people have woken up of what a bad idea it is. I even one time at these meetings was accused by a former board member who brought the term NIMBY, the not in my backyard, But, NIMBY pertains to things like, say, group homes for the disadvantaged. This is a park. This is not a NIMBY issue. I've lived in 3 houses in my life, and I've always chosen to live next to a park. So it's not a NIMBY issue. It's the fact that people woke up, didn't want to ruin the green space, didn't want to convert it from a family place to serving a narrow population. And the politics are such that, look what happened to the fundraising. Why are we here today? The fundraising totally fell apart. The most legitimate donor backed out of that and even was criticized for it in the paper. They didn't want their name associated with it because they realized that there's logical opposition to it. The fundraising fell apart, and this is a board committee of the select board, so that people have realized that it's a bad idea. So why? They don't want to put their money there. The people opposing it are not opposed to a skate park. They're opposed to the siting of it. Let's be sensible. Just say, let's have a skate park, but let's put it somewhere logical, near some toilets, away from the second worst intersection around, a place where there are not going to be security concerns. I mean, there are lots of other places, and people have spoken in this town and said, I don't want to put money here. This is a dumb idea. The select board has a chance to reverse themselves and say, for one reason or another, we didn't get the full story when we originally passed it. Now we're getting a fuller story. We realize a lot of people are against it, something that everyone should be for. And I have a son who wants it, but somewhere else. So this is something we want, but we want somewhere else. Thanks.
Yes, Ms. Clark. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Melissa Clark. I am the Secretary and Treasurer of BASIC, and I'd just like to address the fundraising. We have raised, I don't have the actual figures in front of me, but we've raised around $25,000 in just cash from individual donors and corporations in the town. So we really, considering the economy, we have gotten a tremendous amount of support. In fact, Mike McIntyre, who we work with from Stantec, said that in his history of working with committees that are funding skate parks that have no funding coming from a town, he has never seen a committee raise as much cash, without relying on grants. So he was quite impressed. And also addressing money that was taken away, that grant there, that had absolutely nothing to do with fundraising or politics, anything like that. It was based on the fact that they had other areas that they would rather put their money to because of other issues that had come up. Thank you.
Thanks. Anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Wendy Baxter. I wanted to come and talk today. I also have a young son who's way past his bedtime. But I sort of represent a different face of a mom with young children who is desperate for a local skate park. I did come into the process after the Crow Lot was a chosen site, so I wasn't part of that process. So what I'll speak to is that one of the misconceptions I keep hearing is that this is just for teenagers, it's just for skateboarders, that actually in a lot of the meetings I've been to, the idea that they're all criminals has been pretty low key, but tonight I hear that coming back up again, and that's concerning for me. I have a 5 and an 8-year-old, they're avid skateboarders, even the 5-year-old can drop it on a pipe. So, and we travel hours to get to skate parks. Every weekend, kids are like, where are we going? Where are we going? And every time we go somewhere, we're met with wonderful people. We don't end up getting ostracized. More often, the older kids are happy to help the younger kids in the park. They want them to learn. They're impressed when they're there. Yeah, there is a lot of boys, and Stephanie and I are good friends. We go way back. In fact, when I used to live close to Crow Lot. There are a lot of boys. The best way to get girls involved in sports is to make it accessible. And so the best way to make things accessible is to make the, not a drive down the road or all the way in Manchester. I mean, we travel probably now we've discovered about 8 different sites, but none is closer than a half an hour away from where we are. And so that's a challenge, and it's one of my kids' passions. And so I will continue to travel, and we will do that. But Jeff and Melissa know that the last 2 times my boys have both had birthday parties, instead of gifts, they asked for donations, and they gave donations to the skate park. That's how important it is to them, even though they're 5- and 8-year-old minds. And there's a lot more that I could say, but those are the really big things that I think was important to voice as a parent of young children who really, really just love this sport. And it's not like they can just walk somewhere else and go and do that. There's a real effort that has to be made. So I really would like to see that a skate park get started. And I know that for some families who are involved in this process, their kids are growing up and going to college. I can't imagine the amount of dedication that it takes to stick with something for a decade. And hopefully it won't be another decade before we can move forward with this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Patty Fitzgerald, Brattleboro. I had a question for Spencer. Did you tie a dollar figure to this downsized skate park?
The park is $30 a square foot, approximately. So the fiscal cost would go to about $80 to $150,000.
5,000 times, what did you say, 30?
Approximately 30.
Now, weren't you trying to come in, I must admit I attend all their meetings, and weren't you trying to come in at 150,000?
Right,
Correct.
which would be the 5,000 square foot.
Right.
But if, we were trying to gauge that or scale that to what we thought we might be able to reach, as far as the financial goal. You sat there and heard us say that. So that 80 to 150 range is where we, a high and a low range where we projected we might end up.
That was my question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? We're not going to take second comments until everybody's spoken and until members of the board have spoken. Yes, ma'am? Ms. Krieger, right?
Hi, I'm Wendy Krieger, and I live in Brattleboro. I know about the park, but I live in the neighborhood. And I want to address a couple things. We talked about the lease with the school, and there is not a bond to remove the cement in case there was an issue with this park. And I really believe that there should be a bond. And the second thing is I can't understand why this huge skateboarding community would settle for such a small park. That we have 60 acres at Brattleboro Memorial Park. The park should be there. It would be supervised. There's bathrooms. And you know what? If the park is, the rec department's having financial problems, wanting to get some new equipment, this can become a profitable business in the summer where they could have, first of all, teenagers working there who might need jobs, but also they can maybe have a club fee of some sort that could help, fund not just the park, maybe the maintenance, but also other things. And so I just think that, I'm in support of a skate park, just not at Crow Lot. And I am part of Recite, and we had a community meeting. We had about 30 people there. This was quite a few months ago. And I asked the question, how many people want a skate park in Brattleboro? And everybody raised their hands. And I asked how many people would help fundraise the skate park, help with the fundraising, if it was at a different location, and everybody raised their hand. So there is money available in this town. There is money in this community. We just have to choose a better location to get the support of the town. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Anybody else who's in attendance wants to speak to the matter? Okay, across the board. Anybody on the board want to speak to it?
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
I don't know where to start. Actually, though, I would like to hear a little bit from these guys first, if that's possible.
I think that's fine. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, because I know they've
You want
got
me to
some.
stay here or go there?
Oh, no, you're good right there. You got a mic.
Okay. Most of what was just said has absolutely nothing to do with why we're here, so I'm not even sure why it was allowed, because we might as well talk about the salmon population in an Alaskan river, because it's not why we're here. We're talking about making it smaller, not whether it is going to exist there. That has already been vetted and done. I don't understand why the recite contingency has not heard again and again and again that it was tried for Memorial Park. Are we getting this on camera? Are we getting this on the floor? It was tried at Memorial Park years ago. The Brookside residents came out in force and shut it down. I'm a skateboarder. I don't care if it's at Memorial Park. That's fine with me. But they didn't let us do it. We already tried. We can't do it. That's that. Done. Sorry, they haven't heard that. That's beating a dead horse that's been dead for years. It's like trying to argue whether the earth is flat or not. That would be a more currently decided issue. So you need to hear us on that. We tried for Memorial Park. I would have been fine, but they didn't let us do it, so now we moved on. Didn't let us do it at the West River. Now we moved on. Most of what the recite contingency just said has absolutely no basis in fact whatsoever, except for I thought Andy Davis's letter that he wrote was pretty constructive, and I appreciate that. Okay. The majority of people do support the skate park. I'd love to know how many of the people from the recite contingency do not live near the Crow lot. They want a skate park, they just don't want it near them. They support it, just not near me. And that is not part of the spirit of generosity and tolerance that this town is known for and has historically always been known for. We wonder why it's an aging county. It's because of attitudes like you had, sir. Kids are going to do what kids do. That prejudicial and intolerant attitude towards kids is perhaps the single most, I let you talk, I'm going to finish, is perhaps the single most destructive thing you could bestow upon children. Kids are going to do what kids do. And it's that attitude, and I'm right. And it's that attitude.
Spencer.
It is that attitude.
Spencer.
Okay.
Spencer.
It's that attitude that is destructive.
Wait a second, please. I'm going to ask you, please, to direct your comments to the board rather than to speaking to other people in attendance. It's a necessary part
Yes,
of an
sir.
orderly meeting.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And, Select Board, I believe that that attitude about children is an incredibly destructive one that does not jive with the spirit of generosity and tolerance. That is a prejudicial and intolerant one. Now, thank you for, there have been many hearings. I was at them. Just because they weren't there doesn't mean they didn't happen. They happened. I was there. We were there. Number of basic people were there. If you ask me, there were too many meetings. There were way more than 24 people at we've had 4 Go Skateboarding Days. 4. And there were many, many people at those. One was over 100 people spectating and in attendance skateboarding of all skill levels. There's not going to be lighting. We don't require parents to be there for the basketball players. Why should we do that for the skateboarders? And honestly, it's been a little bit hard as a group to raise money for this project when some people have been engaged, when we've had to endure what in my opinion is a callous contingent working against us and the kids of this town. Doing such things as trying to talk our fundraisers. Some people have tried to talk our fundraisers out of donating to us to get that money away from us. And that makes our mission for you, Select Board, a little bit difficult. We were commandeered by you. And we've been volunteers for over 4 years with BASIC, and many of us for almost 10 years, just doing it out of the goodness of our hearts. We have $75,000 now. That's pretty darn good in this economy to raise money for a skate park. That's pretty good in this economy for that specific mission. And we just want this approved so that we can be successful. We want to be successful to you. We volunteer without getting paid for in excess of 4 years. Other sites have been vetted, and this is the one that was selected. And to downsize it, I've been a skateboarder for 28 years consistently. Those who do not skateboard there do not know what type of adjustment this is. I do. I'm a skateboarder. We've talked about this in our committee. and it will still be a wonderful facility that will serve a need, and will still be a great place for kids, for all, not just skateboarding, scooters, bikes, longboards, skateboards, rollerblades, to be able to go and hone in on their craft and have a safe, visible place to go and improve their talents. So we do have a lot of support in this town. I get emails all the time. We get money in, maybe not huge contributions, but it's adding up. And we're on the cusp of being able to do this, and I think we should stick with the spirit of generosity and tolerance in this town and work towards trying to get this park completed. And I would like to be able to break ground next year. And I think a right-sized park will allow us to be successful for you.
Thank you, Spencer. John, you ready?
Oh, that was Spencer. I love your passion. And I know it has been a long time coming. So the question that I keep going back to as a board, because, and I agree, and I love the passion from everyone, but what is our charge right now? What are we trying to accomplish at this meeting with what we have to do tonight? It is before the DRB, right? Am I correct or not correct on that? You don't have to go.
Hold on, Spencer. The board's now going to talk about the matter. All right. The particular item that's been noticed for hearing or noticed for an agenda item tonight is the request by the skate park committee for the board to authorize a new direction, essentially, for this skate park down from 11,000 feet to 5,000 square feet. That's what we've been asked to look at.
Right.
I think that it's fair to say that, with all due respect for Mr. Chris' position, that inquiry and that request certainly opens up the public comment that we've received from the members of the public who are in attendance. And that's why we've heard from them, and we need to make a decision at this point how to proceed, and there's many alternatives open to us at this time.
Okay.
So that answers your procedural question.
It answers my procedural question. So then I will follow up on that, there have been a lot of false statements made tonight. One of them being, and Spencer, I absolutely agree with you, and I'm not sure of the gentleman's name, but this is, in my opinion, I'm only one of five, a NIMBY issue. It was supposed to be at Memorial Park. Wonderful location. You couldn't ask for anything better than Memorial Park, until the people in that neighborhood decided against it. And we as a board, I wasn't on the board at that point. This was, correct me if I'm wrong, Spence, maybe 10 years ago, when it became available at Memorial Park, and then they decided 2005. So it was shot down, and the board at that time caved for whatever reasons. So then this poor committee, they tried to have it at West River, got shot down there. They tried to have it at a couple other locations, it kept getting shot down. So we as a board at that point said, we got to find a location for this because we really need it. Crow Lot came up, and I got to see if I've corrected this. Do we at this time, do we own that, or are we still leasing it? I think we bought it, didn't we?
No, it's subject to a lease agreement.
It's still subject to, just wanted to make sure that it was still subject to a lease agreement. I don't know if, so I haven't been on the board for a couple of years. I agree with them. I think that this should go through. If it's not a matter of the DRB, downsizing it, I have no problem with it. And I will leave my comments at that.
Can
wanna
we,
go next?
yeah, can we talk about what our options are?
No, I think that the time for public comment was before, and we'll get back to public comment afterwards. But right now, the board is discussing the matter, having heard from both the applicant and anybody who wanted to speak at that point.
Yeah, because I think we got to sort of, and everybody's emotional, I totally understand why. I want to sort of, for a second, take the emotion out and just look at the practical, what our options are.
Well, I think that our alternatives at this point are very, very broad. We have a town committee that was formed in May of 2005 to fundraise and put together a skate park at the Crow Lot.
2010.
2010, did I say 2005? 2010, May 2010. And questions have been raised about whether it should proceed at that location. This is a different board than made the decision in the past. It's a different board than voted over the course of the last 2 years. And we could vote tonight on Basic's request to say, yea, verily go forth and build it at up to 5,000 feet, at 5,000 square feet at $150,000. Or we could say, don't build it at all, or we could say, look at locations. There's a whole bunch of options. Pretty wide range at this point.
Can I ask another question? Unless you want to list
Do you
more
want me
options.
to answer? No, I'm happy to answer questions. I may be wrong, too.
Like hypothetically, if we said tonight, yes, you can make it smaller, build it smaller, does Basic have to go back to the DRB? Like, is there another requirements that go with this?
All right, so the answers to those questions are as follows. It's my understanding that Basic put an application for the DRB somewhat more than 2 years ago for an 11,000 or 12,000 square foot park. DRB granted a permit. It was appealed, came back after the appeal at 11,000 square feet, and that permit is now expired. So they have to go back to the DRB to get a permit again.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
And additionally, the other logistical issue is that the money that Basic has raised is, I mean, it's public money, and as a public trust, it's our job to make sure that the money is spent correctly. So we have to authorize any spending of that money. So far, the only authorization that we've made for expenditure of that money is to get the design that led to Stantec coming here and showing us those pictures 6 months ago. And they are asking, particularly either tonight or soon, for us to approve spending more money so Stantec can give us a design at a smaller size. So we would have to approve a new contract with Stantec.
In the DRB process, and I'm just asking all these stupid questions so we're all on the same page here. Within the DRB process, is there a process to deal with the siting, or is it just there would be a hearing on just the at that site?
It would be a plan as presented by the committee or by the select board.
Okay.
Do you want to say something or just have questions?
Those are, I'm trying to formulate, I mean, what's, everybody, it is really a polarizing and emotional issue.
Yeah, you said that to me the other day.
So I'm just trying to figure out a way, it's a tough one, because I don't want to re-litigate something, but I also understand I'm just trying to figure out what the right decision for tonight is. And I'm not sure I know what that is yet.
You ready to speak?
I am.
Donna?
And I'm going to go in a different direction and take it right back to the feelings, to the emotions, because I think they're important. And one of the things I really respect about this community is thoughtfulness. And I think the most encouraging thing I've heard tonight are from the Recite folks wanting to reach across the aisle in a nation where people, butt heads and things shut down and say, we want to fundraise for this park. And I can't just pass it off as a NIMBY issue, because I've heard from doctors and psychiatrists and parents who have some pretty valid concerns about safety. I also think we need to watch ourselves around being child and teenage in particular phobic, because this community needs people who believe that when kids get together, amazing things can happen, not just drug deals, not just violence, not just graffiti. We could have art all over that park. And I like also to think about that particular location being sort of beautifully supervised by being close to town. And I understand if I were a property owner, I would be thinking about it, absolutely. But I would hope that I would say, you know what, this is going to change the scope of my neighborhood. I might hear kids playing. I might hear the sound of wheels. I wonder how that'll be. But I really charge us, the board, with thinking deeply about what we've heard tonight and not assigning negative intent to the concerns spoken articulately and not rushing into a decision. I was not on the board when location was debated. I trust the previous boards to at least have heard what people were saying about this decision. I think that we need to sit with it. I think we need to take into consideration what we've heard tonight. And I also believe that if this is going to move forward in a constructive way, we need to be able to somehow move forward with the desire to create a space that is accessible, that is carefully thought out, that is safe and amazing. I personally don't care where that happens. I would prefer it be someplace that dignifies our relationship to all the children in this community and not ostracizes them. So that's what I've got for you at this point in time.
Thank you.
You want to speak now?
Yeah. I was on the school board when this process started, so I can testify to those who think there weren't hearings that there were hearings. We had 3 separate hearings. And in the beginning, they were very sparsely attended. There were 2 families that came to the first one, and they had concerns. But the process went forward. Since then, obviously, things have changed significantly. There's a lot more concern, and I have to say that the concerns that the parents and the other people that spoke here brought are important concerns. And I think that at this point, it's time for us to reconsider all the options, to recognize that this is an incredibly divisive decision. If we should decide to, as Andy Davis said, free basic to consider more than one siting option, we will have other groups here that aren't you who will have the same concerns about siting it near them. I think, though, that we're going to have to we should go through that process. It's going to be a pain in the neck, but I think that we have to do it. That's what we're supposed to make the best decisions for the community that serve all the needs of the community, and I think if we can't just ignore something that's as divisive as this.
I don't know if the board's going to agree, but...
Well,
hold on. Kate, do you want to
got
speak
another
yet?
one?
Or no, well, she asked questions, but she didn't really speak substantively yet. You don't have to.
Yeah, I'm still torn
That's
on
okay.
what we need to do.
Do you want to speak? I'm ready to talk, but you go ahead.
I'm not in favor of David's suggestion, only because I feel like it's just giving this poor committee and this poor, they're just, what do we do, make them start all over again? And we're going to run into the same problems, and we're going to run into the same situations as we did at Memorial Park, as we did at West Park. And all this committee, all these people want to do is get a skateboard park for the kids.
Yeah.
That's what they want to do. Yeah. And I think they've been pushed and pushed and pushed too much. That's my opinion, and I'm still going to stick by it. So, is it the best location? No, it may not be, but it's a location. And they've been fighting and fighting and fighting for a location for so long. And I know the people that are against it, are going to have their opinions on it, but I just feel like they've been pushed far enough.
So I'll recognize myself. Year and a half ago, right after the appeal was completed, I think that I opened up a can of worms by suggesting that the process had not been adequate at that point, and by saying that from what I saw in the various proceedings and the various decisions, the decision to place a skate park at Kroll Lot had evolved as a result of various potential sites being rejected. And then, just like John said tonight, well, maybe you can go with the Kroll Lot. Okay, let's put it at the Kroll Lot. And it was a year and a half ago where I, with a completely different board, nobody else who's currently on the board was there at the time, where I said, I think we need to have a short process over the course of a couple of months to look at site selection, because there's no consensus within this community at this time that this skate park should be at the Kroll Lot. And if I recall correctly, by a vote of 3-2, the select board decided at that time that there had been enough process and that the committee had been formed in May of 2010, 2005, and that we were going to go forward at Kroll Lot because that's a decision that a prior board had made, and that's the way we were going to proceed. It's interesting to see the different ways in which the debate has played out over the course of these 2.5 years that I've been listening to people come and talk about the skate park. There have been times where the group was overwhelmingly in favor. There has been times where the group has not been overwhelmingly in favor, and tonight there's many more people opposed than in favor. I've continued to believe that there wasn't a real site selection process. I know that there were a ton of meetings relating to development of the park, but that's different from having a site selection process. But, a different board voted that we were not going to reopen that, a year and a half ago now. But this is a totally different board now. This is a different board. And my position at this point is that it looks to me like the circumstances have changed, because the discussion was always in terms of 12,000 feet and $350,000 of fundraising. And if the inability to raise the funds tells me anything, it's that there's not the level of support that we thought at the beginning there was going to be for this park. And I heard other board members say consistently, if they can raise the $350,000 into 5 years, well then, great, let them build a park there, because it will show support for that park in the community as a whole. And, economic boycotts are the way of the world. And the money hasn't been raised at this point, just but $75,000. And with all due respect for the letter, and it was a nice letter that you wrote, Jeff, but, the fundraising momentum, the last thing that I heard about fundraising is that, the Land Trust said they weren't going to continue with that grant. And, that's problematic. And one of the things that they cited was lack of buy-in in the surrounding community. I continue to believe, just like I believed when I first raised the issue, that having such a divisive atmosphere relating to this park is not a healthy way to go forward with this project. And part of me is prepared to table it at the risk of having to hear it all again, because we've heard all these things many times before, but I understand Donna's position about maybe not being ready to decide today. I also think that there may be merit ultimately to broadening out the decision about whether there's going to be a park, and if so, where. to look broadly at all available sites in town and to try to develop some kind of consensus about whether it's going to, where it's going to be and if the money can be raised there. I understand, John, your position. I've been on a board that already voted not to reopen.
Yep.
And I went ahead and voted in favor of giving the contract to Stantec. I did not vote against subsequent decisions about the park because, the board has spoken, but it's a totally different board now, and I don't hear that there's support right across the board and across the community right now.
Mr. Chair?
Hold on, Spencer.
Okay.
Go ahead, you have a question.
No, I don't have a question. I just have,
Kate, please.
Just spit it out.
I like grappling with this. No,
Yeah.
I mean.
It's a very difficult issue.
It is really difficult, and, I am a supporter of the skate park. I have no problems with it being at the Kroll lot, but as Donna said, I'm not wedded to one position, one place to another. But at the same time, to me, right now, however we proceed, and this sort of leans me towards tabling it, just for the fact that whatever decision, if we decide that, we want to look into other places or whatever, even if we start thinking about that, I think we have to have a process laid out before we sit here tonight and say, this is what we're going to do. So I'd rather risk on the side of, instead of saying we're going to start all over, I don't want to say that tonight without really understanding what starting all over means. I'm just really, I'm torn because, again, I am in favor of the skate park, and I hear what John is saying. So this is really, it's really just as hard as it for you folks. It's hard to figure this out.
That's why we get the big dollars to do this, is because we have to make our decisions on this. But, to me, it's making them start all over again. And I just don't think it's fair.
Donna?
I'm going to keep it brief because I know it's late. I think anything worth doing, and I believe the skate park is worth doing for so many reasons, is worth doing really well. And if it takes a little more time and a little more deliberation, I'm also just envisioning, when I'm not on the select board, I am a community organizer, and I just wonder what would happen if some of the Recite folks were to join and do some committee work, and if some portion of those 30 concerned members of this community were to help with the fundraising, I have no doubt, based on 25 years of community organizing, what would happen. So I would like to just hold that out as a possibility, that there could be profound cooperation, and this thing would be a done deal as soon as we clarify our vision.
It's not going to happen tonight.
Yep. And there's silence.
Mr. Chair.
Well, I think that we're probably ready for a motion to table this.
So I'm
In order to.
And I would,
Well, I mean,
you know something? I'm not even sure we need a motion to table because there's no motion on the floor.
Right.
I mean, I think that it's going to have to make its way back on the agenda, but is the board ready? Anybody on the board ready to make a motion with respect to, I'm going to put it this way. Is there anybody on the board who's ready to make a motion on the agenda item arising from the letter that we received from BASIC?
Yes. But I don't know how to word it. So,
All right.
I just would like to give them the okay to continue in the route that they're going. And if it, with falling before the, I guess if that does get voted in, that they would have to go before the DRB again. So it's just the wording of it that.
Well, let me ask you this, John.
Yes.
Are you looking for
I'm looking for
a motion?
Because we have nothing here that.
Well, authorizing the skate park to begin planning for a park of approximately 5,000 square feet as presented in its September 20 memo?
Jan, you got that?
No, well, you.
I'm asking if that's what you
I know, but I
want.
just wanted to make sure.
Don't so move yet.
I'm not. Why not?
I'm asking if is that what you're looking for?
That's what I'm looking for.
All right, well, I guess it's your decision if you want to make that motion, you know.
Can I just tell you why I?
Yes.
Go ahead,
say
Kate.
something?
please.
I'm, obviously, you can do what you want to do. Again, I'm so conflicted, and I don't want to vote against it to be, I mean, if I vote against that because I'm not sure, it's going to come across as a Kate's against the skateboard park being shrunk, you know, made smaller, which I'm not necessarily against. So I just want you to think about that, at least from my perspective.
Oh, and I do, but I've been down this road before.
Right.
And so I can see where this is heading. And I don't want to go down that road again. So I'm sorry that you're conflicted, you know, but...
Right, but I just don't want us to do something tonight that's going to jeopardize something longer term.
But again, so if I make the motion and you vote against it, which is your prerogative, absolutely, you are basically saying you have to start again.
Right, but that's not what I want to say.
Well, you know, I can't word it any other way. I wish I could to help you out, but, you know, I don't think there's any leeway. I mean, they're asking for one or the other. And so...
all right, so sounds like...
I'm sorry. I wish I could.
We're just asking to continue our fundraising for a smaller park. We're still going to have to get the new design, come here again, get the new design approved, go through the school board and everything like that. So it's not like fundraising for a smaller sized park is the end all be all. That's it for a skate park. There's still going to be lots more. We're used to it.
All right, so if I understand correctly, John Allen is making a motion for the select board to authorize BASIC to begin planning for a park of approximately 5,000 square feet as requested in its September 20, 2013 memo.
At its original site.
At its original site.
So moved.
All right. So the alternatives at this point from the board are either to vote on this or to move to table it.
Can't wait to see this vote.
I move to table it.
All right, there's a motion and there's a motion to table. I don't have my Robert's rules, but I think that the motion to table needs to have a date certain. Needs to have a date certain for the motion. And no, I think the next, I would ask if there's going to be a motion to table that it be to November 5. I'm not going to be here on the 15th. Is that acceptable?
I need to ask a question.
Go ahead.
Does that mean that on November 5, we will come back with a suggestion, decision? What does that mean?
I would think that on November 5th, well, what it means technically is that John's motion would be called for a vote on November 5th. And we at that time might have other alternatives on the table as a result of some planning by the board between now and then, having heard from everybody who's in attendance.
Thank you. Would it also allow for the skate park movement to continue fundraising in the interim?
Oh, yeah.
They're going to continue, their committee remains as is.
Okay.
Is that acceptable to table to November 5th?
To table, acceptable, yeah.
I'm not asking you, I'm asking Dom.
Yes.
You're looking right at me.
She's on the board, you know.
You're looking right at me.
He has a habit of doing
that. What kind of a fake out was that?
All right, so we have a motion to table John's motion to the November 5th meeting. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anybody opposed or abstaining?
Yeah.
All right. All right, you vote no and you vote no, so that carries 3-2. All right, so this matter will be taken up again at the agenda on November 5th. Thanks for your input tonight.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We still have some significant business to take care of, so I would ask that discussion please take place out in the hallway. Spencer?
Spencer?
Sorry, down at the other
Can
side.
I get a recess?
No, I don't want to.
Okay.
The next matter on the agenda is appointment of committee members for the Town Manager Search Citizens Committee. So,
Business yet to do.
I'm going to speak to the current status of the Town Manager Search process. Yesterday, the Select Board interviewed a series of candidates for Town Manager, and we are moving towards second round interviews. I'm not at liberty to say at this point how many second round interviews we'll be doing, but we did have 5 interviews yesterday of a range of candidates with a range of different experiences. I think I can characterize it as a very productive day that we had yesterday, and we look forward over the course of the next weeks, hopefully over the course of the next couple of weeks, to getting to second round interviews and hopefully being able to make a decision promptly. One of the steps that we have decided to take as part of the search process in the second round is to have a citizens committee that will meet with all second round candidates. And we conducted 8 interviews today, following receipt of 9 applications for membership on that citizen search committee. And we are now ready to take nominations for membership on the Town Manager Search Citizens Committee. And we'll go from that side to this side.
Can I make one comment?
Yes, please.
You can empty your room.
Oh, yeah.
You know how to empty your room, buddy.
Yeah, well,
Good job, David.
thanks. Yeah,
I
great.
nominate Lisa Lorimer.
All right, Lisa Lorimer is nominated. Dave?
I nominate Ian Keel.
Hold on. Lisa Lorimer. Ian Keel. I nominate Jerry Goldberg. Kate?
I'll nominate Rhonda Calhoun.
John?
I nominate Stephen Cormier.
Donna?
I nominate Spoon Agave.
Dave?
Nominate Kate Anderson.
I nominate Jeff Lewis.
Huh.
Are there any more nominations?
What? That's amazing.
All right, so now the vote is going to proceed as follows. For each candidate in the order in which they were nominated, we're going to take a vote. And after the slate of 8 has been voted on, we're going to see what the votes are. We'll decide what the next round is going to be. All those in favor of Lisa Lorimer, please raise your hands. That's 4. Only in favor. We're not doing any opposed.
That was 4?
4.
Just 4.
You didn't vote. Who didn't vote for Lisa? Oh, okay, sorry. I
he
thought
didn't
doesn't
vote.
have to vote
No,
again.
throw me under the bus,
All right,
David.
all right.
I got all the hands.
I'll stand.
That's only at town meeting that you have to stand. All those in favor of Ian Keel? 2. All those in favor of Jerry Goldberg? 4. All those in favor of Rhonda Calhoun? 2. All those in favor of Steve Cormier? 2. All those in favor of Spoon Agave? 4. All those in favor of Kate Anderson? 2. All those in favor of Jeff Lewis? 5. How do you like that?
Very
All
good,
right.
Jeff.
So, we have 4 candidates who've received 4 or 5 votes. So, Lisa Lorimer is appointed to the committee. Jerry Goldberg is appointed to the committee. Spoon is appointed to the committee. And Jeff Lewis is appointed to the committee. Now we're going to have a second round of voting among Ian, Rhonda, Steve Cormier, and Kate Anderson. So, hold on a second. All those in favor of...
Just start with the top one.
I know, I'm just looking. I see too many lines. All those in favor of Ian Keel, please raise your hands. 2. All those in favor of Rhonda Calhoun, please raise your hand. 3. All those in favor of Steve Cormier, please raise your hands. 2. All those in favor of Kate Anderson, please raise your hand. 2. All right. 5th member of the committee is Rhonda Calhoun. So, following people have been elected to the committee: Lisa Lorimer, Jerry Goldberg, Rhonda Calhoun, Spoona Gavi, Jeff Lewis. Congratulations to
thank
everybody who put their names in. This was an excellent group of people.
Yes.
From whom we needed to make the choice. I'm going to ask the interim town manager to reach out to those 5 people and please ask them to provide to us by Friday any questions that they would like included on the roster of questions at the interviews.
Yep.
Thank you.
Not a problem.
Is there any further? Is that?
Good committee.
Oh, yeah, very good committee. And I want to thank everybody who put their names in. Is there any other business under that item, appointing committee members of the town manager search status? Next item on the agenda is ordinance amendment. Patrick, take it away.
Yes, sir. We have 2 ordinance amendments that we're going to have a first reading on today, both of which have to do with parking. First one is at Linden Street, and I think the board will recall that when the state office complex was being renovated, we installed parking meters and certain handicap parking spaces on Linden Street in support of being able to keep those state office workers in the area near to downtown. That work is done at the building next door. Those folks have vacated the Linden Street offices, and as per our arrangement with the Brattleboro Retreat, we would like to adjust the ordinances to reflect the removal of those meters. So I would, excuse me.
No, go for it, buddy.
First reading.
First reading, which one are we on here?
Of 116-101.
Nope.
There's actually something in
No,
16. We're going to 16.
We're going to 16-10. So the first reading of oh, and just incidentally, before we proceed, the board, through their ordinance, has the Traffic Safety and Control Committee, which is tasked with reviewing these things. So these have all been vetted by Traffic Safety and Control previously.
Yep.
So, first reading of 16-10, off-street areas, on-street areas, rather. The following streets or portions of the streets are hereby designated as on-street parking meter areas. We would strike item 9, which reads, on the westerly side of Linden Street, beginning at the sidewalk on the southern side in a northerly direction for 187 feet. That would be stricken. Incidentally, we would also strike number 10, which is on the westerly side of Linden Street, beginning 40 feet from the north side of the crosswalk in a northerly direction for 47 feet. In addition to that, we would strike 16-107, spaces for handicap parking, number 18, on the westerly side of Linden Street, the first 2 spaces from the north side of the crosswalk in a northerly direction.
Thank you.
Take no action. It's just a first reading.
First reading. And then can you please speak to the next potential amendment to the parking ordinance?
Sure. The next potential amendment to the parking ordinance is on Elliott Street. As the board will recall, there is a space for limited parking, which is, I believe, 30 minutes. And it presently runs from 154 to 148 Elliott Street. The board put that into place in, I believe, 2000 in support of some of the businesses that were located at that section of Elliott Street that had frequent need to have customers come in and get out fairly quickly. This would be a reading to shorten the length of that limited parking in support of 2 of the businesses that are operating there. today, one of which is a ministry, another of which is a physical therapist or massage therapist, both of which have business activities which typically take a little more than an hour. So this would be a first reading for a change to Chapter 16-101, Limited Parking Areas, and it would be amended to read, on the southerly side of Elliott Street, from the westerly side of the drive at 138 Elliott Street to the easterly side of the drive at 148 Elliott Street, parking shall be limited to a period of 20 minutes during the hours of 9 to 6, except on weekends and holidays.
Patrick, can you please, as to both of those proposed amendments, explain what the process is going forward?
The process going forward would be that we would have a second reading and a public hearing at a future meeting, and then if the board moves to adopt these changes to the ordinance, it would be, I believe, 60 days after that hearing and the board adopting it that it goes into effect.
So the next meeting where this is considered, we'll have a second reading and then a public hearing that'll be opened, and we'll take any comment, and then we'll vote.
Correct.
Any questions from the board about either of those two parking amendments? Yes, Dave?
The Elliott Street change, that's from the hotel pharmacy to the garage?
No.
No.
No, this is further down. Let's see.
The next buildings
past
the what
Okay.
was the Elliott
Fine.
Street
Thank you.
Market.
Yeah.
market or cafe?
Roughly from, it would
Beyond
start
Elm
at
Street.
Jason Cooper's property management
It's
office.
not a high traffic.
No, it's
Gotcha.
just further down.
That's fine.
Yep.
All set. Thank you.
Any further discussion on that? I think that's the last agenda item, except for meetings. Who wants to read the calendar? Come on, John.
Come on, you're-
I dare you.
Oh, is it my turn?
But remember, slowly.
I know.
And with feeling.
Yes, with feeling. I'll do it with gusto. All right, Brattleboro Town Calendar. Thursday, October 3rd,
Get it
6:30, Skate Park Committee meeting at the Hannah Cosman. Monday, October 7th, at 5 p.m., Energy Committee, Hannah Cosman. Tuesday, October 8th, 4 p.m., Arts Committee, Select Board Meeting Room. 4:30, Finance Committee, Hannah Cosman Room. On the same date, 7 p.m., Tree Advisory Committee in the Hannah Cosman Room. Friday, October 11th, 10 a.m. to 11:30 a.m., ADA Advisory Committee. Monday, October 14th, 8:30 a.m. We're closed for Columbus Day. Tuesday, October 15th at 6:15, Select Board Meeting, Select Board Room. 6:30 to 7:30 p.m., Human Services Review Committee at Morningside Commons. And I move to adjourn.
Is there anybody who opposes? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed or abstaining? That carries 5-0. Thank you, members of the press. Thank you, BCTV. Thank you, everybody who attended this meeting tonight.
And our
It was a healthy
interpreters.
discussion. Thank you,
Our
interpreters.
interpreters, and it's 9:10.
Woohoo.
Nice work. Thank you, Jan and Patrick.